us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. I've always wanted to say that.
Yes, Father.
So we have the Town of Burlington holding the December 5th, 2024 meeting as a hybrid meeting. The governor has issued an executive order on March 12th, 2020, authorizing remote meetings under General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, and extended by Chapter 2 of the Act of 2023, including permitting remote meetings and participation until March 31st, 2025, and that's coming up.
As always, members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting, but note that while an option for remote attendance is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast. Members with a particular interest in a specific item on the agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. Those seeking to attend remotely may do so via the following. You can go to the URL townofburlington.webex.com. Our meeting number is 2342-025-5716. Our meeting password is 1645, and you can join the WebEx by phone at 617-315-0704. Please be aware that using your web browser to log into the meeting will not work for remote participation. Please access the meeting using dedicated WebEx software that you can download for free at webex.com. Those looking to participate remotely, please raise your hand, and staff will send a request to unmute at the appropriate time. We're being broadcast on the VCAT government channel. You can find it on Comcast 99, RCN 15, and Verizon 41. We're also streamed on Facebook Live on the VCAT government Facebook page.
Great. Thank you very much. First on the agenda tonight is withdrawals. We're going to begin with items off the agenda for tonight. Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to take items 7E, 7F, 7G, and 7H together and out of order for discussion purposes.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? That's going to be 6-0-0. Thank you. So item E is a public hearing and application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.1 light manufacturing or processing plants of the Northwest Park Plan Development District. 31 to 37 Northwest Ave, Fabry is the applicant. F is a public hearing, an application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.2. Laboratories engaged in research, experimental and testing activities, including but not limited to the fields of biology, chemistry, electronics, engineering, geology, medicine, and physics, subject to the planning board making the findings set forth in section 8.3.7.4 of the zoning bylaws and subject to the applicable rules and regulations of the Board of Health of the Northwest Park Plan Development District, 31 to 37 North Ave. Again, Fabry is the applicant. Public hearing, item G, 7G is a public hearing application for approval of special permit pursuant to 1.5.4 hazardous and toxic materials / chemical use, storage, transport, disposal, or discharge of the Northwest Park Plan Development District, 31 to 37 North Ave. Fabry is the applicant. And finally, 7H, public hearing application for approval of special permit pursuant to 1.5.6 generation or storage of hazardous waste in excess of the volumes classified as very small quantity generator of the Northwest Park Plan Development District, 31 to 37 North Ave. Fabry is the applicant. All right, so we took them out of order.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the planning board hereby accept the request to withdraw without prejudice as requested by the applicant's attorney in a letter dated November 27th, 2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 6-0-0. Thank you. All right, next is public participation. Is there anyone in the audience or online who is here to speak on an item that is not on the agenda this evening? All speakers get a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. Nobody here? Anybody online?
Doesn't look at.
Don't see it? Okay, we'll move on to announcements.
I will do announcements.
Thank you.
So we have on December 10th at 8 a.m. there'll be a sculpture park committee meeting, and that will be held via WebEx. The Mall Road Mixed District rezoning info sessions, this is for town meeting members. They've been scheduled for 6 o'clock in the Town Hall Annex Meeting Room and via WebEx. They'll be held on December 11th for precincts 7, 3, and 2, and December 18th for precincts 1, 4, 5, and 6. Christmas holiday, December 24th and 25th, all town offices will be closed. New Year's holiday, December 31st and January 1st. Town offices close at noon on the 31st and reopen on January 2nd. Sculpture Park meeting, that's a
the same
Reed
one.
second one.
Second?
And then the Burlington Area Chamber of Commerce, it has organized a holiday food drive to support the Burlington Food Pantry, People Helping People. And so individuals wishing to make donations can bring them to a collection box at the Chamber's office at 265 Wynn Street. And you can go to bccma.org for more information in their news section of their website.
Okay, thank you. There's no legal notices, no non-approvals, no administrative matters, and we now have matters of appointment. The next items on our agenda this evening are all continued public hearing on the submitted zoning articles for the January 2025 town meeting. Do we know what date that is in January 2025?
The 27th.
27th, thank you.
Yep.
The petitioner for each article will be provided an overview of the article, which they've submitted, followed up by questions from the planning staff and members of the board. After that, we'll open up the public hearing to see for any comments of folks that want to discuss that. Please refrain from repeating previously spoken comments from others and keep comments relevant to the topic. We allow those persons in the main hearing room a chance to speak first, and then the folks that are on the WebEx users to come online afterwards. All righty, our first item is item 7A, a public hearing, amendment to Article 2, definitions Article 4, use regulations Article 11, special residential regulations of the zoning bylaw, to bring the zoning bylaws into alignment with state law regulating accessory dwelling units called ADUs. That is submitted by the planning board. Staff.
All right, so let me share my screen. So we had a pretty good discussion on this at our last meeting. For those just watching, the state in August essentially changed the law. The state house did, stating that any zoning district that is a single-family home zoning district needs to allow accessory dwelling units by right in the entire state. And so there are some stipulations on that, but this is our response to that. So the state is allowing municipalities to add their own restrictions, and so this is our kind of our attempt at that. The biggest change that we've had is that we discussed this. I think there was a lot of discussion last meeting about the height restriction and how to make it fair for everybody without also kind of not wanting to see a ranch with like a 3-story house like next to it. So we talked about this in the meeting, pre-meeting with Bill and Jess, and so I thought that it would make sense to split up the height restriction. So if this is the wrong version, oh no. So what this should say, and I think the version that you have in your staff report should say is that if you are an attached ADU, you can go up to 30 feet. If you are a detached ADU, you need to be maxed out at 20 feet. So that would be to help out, people that are split level or tri-level, and so it doesn't, it provides more options for that.
So to confirm, is 30 feet the maximum height for a single-family
Yes,
dwelling?
30 feet is the current maximum
That's
for
important to
single.
share with the
Yes,
community.
yes,
Where the-
exactly,
where
yep.
we're present.
Yes, so that is the only change from the last,
Quick question.
yes.
Would the 20 feet allow for a detached garage to have an ADU above it?
Oh,
If-
That's a good question.
Because that's very common.
So I would say that if you have a ranch, probably not. If you have a colonial style house, it
Well, the 20-foot restriction wouldn't matter what kind of house you have in front
Oh,
of it.
sorry, I'm thinking the other way.
Yeah,
Detached,
so
yeah.
if it's just a detached garage, is 20 feet enough to have an ADU on top of a detached garage?
Not much.
I don't think
No,
so.
I don't think so.
I think there should
So
be
I'm
some type of,
concerned about that, because that seems like a very common way that people might build ADUs.
Unless it's attached.
I would think that the height of the ADU wouldn't surpass, the ADU shouldn't surpass the height of the primary residence. So I think maybe that's the way to justify it.
But what if you add a second floor, I call that your ADU? Then you would be
Well,
able to just.
but your primary residence, if the primary residence doesn't have a second floor, then you're not going to supersede the height of the primary residence. Oh, I'm sorry. I said, so the primary residence, if it's one floor, right, we should say the ADU shouldn't supersede the height of the primary residence. So if the primary residence decides that they want to add a second floor, then they can add that second above the garage. But you shouldn't have a ranch with, I mean, I think it would kind of look weird for a second floor ranch, second floor garage with the lower style ranch. If we're looking for,
Yeah, I will
Consistency.
say, I know of homes in Burlington now where there's a ranch and there is an ADU. In this case that I'm thinking of, it's attached, and it is 2 stories, and then the ranch is 1 story, and it's existing today. And I'm not sure we want to prohibit that, because, especially because they have to stay within the setbacks. They can't necessarily go out too far. And also, more importantly, I'm thinking, a lot of people have detached garages. Isn't that where we would, if they have a detached garage, it's so much easier, less expensive, and less intrusive on the neighborhood if they just put the ADU on top of the detached garage?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
because if
No?
they're.
Ms. Sutherland.
I think like what you're saying, Barbara, is what we're trying to get to with the modification of this, in knowing that, based on the last meeting, there's a very good discussion around the restriction we had was making it harder for people who truly need the space to get the space. So thinking of the ranches, and so the idea was, if the garage, in theory, was attached to the ranch, that yes, we would
Then you could.
want to allow for the ADU above the garage, but at the same time, we're trying to restrict where you're not building a giant ADU behind the ranch.
Well, it can only be 900 square feet, so how giant can it get?
Well, height.
Oh,
I mean, if you're in a
Height-wise.
ranch next door, you don't
Yeah.
want somebody in an ADU looking into your living room.
Yeah, but that's, or you build a huge colonial and you're still looking in their living room. So I think the idea was to kind of allow for
Right.
growth of the people that truly this is meant to serve. And could there be a better solution? Likely, but I think we don't want to restrict it for those people that truly need it.
I agree. My concern is, I don't know if we should be, I just feel like, am I the only one who thinks that's going to be the most common way to implement an ADU? If you have a detached garage, you put an apartment on top of
no.
it.
But even,
That's going to be very common.
of course
Yeah.
it is,
Okay,
but I mean,
so go
if
ahead,
we're
Ms.
talking
Rappaport.
about,
You can't hear anyone? Oh.
Ms. Rappaport, go
I
ahead.
mean, if somebody already has an existing ADU above a garage, aren't they grandfathered in?
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm not really concerned about those people, but if we're adding to it, if we have a ranch and they're building above the garage, I mean, we want consistency. We don't want our neighborhoods to look weird.
I mean, we don't prohibit people from putting additions above the garage right now if it's attached, right?
Correct.
Even if it's a single-family ranch. I mean,
This is-
single-story ranch. They could put a 2-story,
Wait, this is detached that we're talking about.
I understand.
Yeah.
So if it's attached or detached, does it matter?
Yeah, it's not prohibited now, you're
Yeah,
right.
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not as concerned about that as I would be about someone putting a trailer in their backyard right now.
Right.
And they could under this law.
No, they
could
can't
put-
with the,
They could put a trailer in their backyard.
no, they have to have plumbing and
It
electricity.
doesn't matter. You could put a trailer on a foundation.
Oh, on
In other
a
words, you can-
foundation.
They're selling a prefabs now.
Oh,
that are
so
basically
you're a manufactured
trailers.
home type of thing.
Well, some of them look like, literally like trailers. They're long and thin, narrow, like a trailer, and and they're selling them like Amazon, they're selling these places that are crazy, and they basically looking like trailers. And this law will basically allow them to put a trailer in the back. As long as they have electricity and plumbing, they can put a trailer in the
Isn't
yard.
that what it looks like, right? It's no design.
I mean, that's more concerning to me than all of
So
this.
how would you control that in this,
I don't know, do we,
say it's good?
they're not allowing us to do a lot of controls, right? So how do you do that?
Well, you could
Literally,
say
you could put a metal trailer in the back right now, as long as it's got
Well,
electricity
so,
and plumbing.
you know, if you think about manufactured homes, right, they're typically not on foundations, they're on jacks, right?
Not
No,
necessarily.
so manufactured homes are basically the same as any other home. You just put your own foundation, they come and plop it on the foundation for you.
You're talking so I'm thinking manufactured home versus, you're talking prefab home.
Manufactured, prefab are one and the same.
Prefab.
No, so when my understanding of a manufactured home is you're in jack, you wheel it in, and then you put it on jacks like
Not-
Mr. Pember's talking.
I didn't know, I didn't know. I
Not the
don't think
case
so, yeah.
anymore. They've kind of new age.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, but what I'm talking about is when you go down to Florida, there's the manufactured homes. which they consider
well,
that.
no, now we're talking about trailers. Basically trailers, but they take them off the wheels. In other words, it becomes a permanent fixture. If you sit that thing on a foundation, or if you sit it on a slab, instead of, if you remove the wheels, it now becomes a house.
Right.
So, and people are doing that. They're ordering these trailers, and you can, literally nothing saying it can't be metal on the outside like a regular trailer is, and, in other words, that concerns me more than anything.
Staff, is there any solution that we can?
So we have been, I'm just looking through our use table.
Yeah.
So as a principal use in our zoning bylaw, as a principal use, mobile homes are no, as a
Oh.
principal
Yeah, but
use.
it's not a
That's right.
mobile home, it's a
This is-
manufactured home.
Right, it's,
No, back up for a second. Mobile home means it has wheels on it. Right now, we don't allow mobile homes with wheels on them on our lots, but the bottom line is, we also don't allow second dwellings. In other words, there's nothing preventing you from using,
Detached second dwellings.
taking the wheels off a mobile home and attaching it to a foundation and putting it in, now that they're allowing second dwellings.
Right. They'd have
So
to
do we-
attach to the sewer, but other than that.
That's
Do we
right.
say that it can't have an engine?
Well, no, they don't have engines. They don't have engines.
Yeah, they
They're
pull by
they're
themselves,
homes
yeah.
that get pulled on a trailer, with wheels, and then they remove the wheels once they do.
We could say it has to be on a typical foundation, can we say that?
Well, we
but even
can,
if they
but you can
remove the
put that
wheels,
on a
you have
foundation.
On a typical foundation.
so
Okay, Steph.
I gotta finish the second part of what I was saying. No, it's okay. So under accessory use regulations in the zoning bylaw, 43116, as a uses no merely accessory to residential principal uses, mobile homes, temporary trailers are a yes.
Today.
So we already allow
Yeah,
it.
we know that there are people who have.
Well, that's an
trailers
accessory
parked in
use, so I think
Right.
they allow that, so maybe you could put that there while you're rehabbing your house or something, maybe as an accessory use, or maybe you could put it there and use it for storage, I don't know, but the reality is,
The other,
There's some on Blanchard Road right now
Yeah.
that people live in.
Yeah, that's true.
Have lived in forever.
those are probably
Those are
grandfathered, those have been there so long, they're probably grandfathered in, is my guess, yeah, there's two of them
Yeah.
down on that, yeah. I mean, the only way I could see that being addressed would be requiring, dimensions, and I don't think the state law will allow us to put dimensions on these things. In other words, you can't be a long, narrow,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
something that would be pulled over a road, with wheels over a roadway, and then they remove the wheel and put it.
So a solution you're thinking is, or besides, well, they could do an oversized load, but that would be more of a
yes.
standard manufactured type thing.
That's right.
But-
So once it became as wide as it is long, it no
So
longer gives the vision of a mobile home.
We could put conditions on, staff, we could put conditions on width, right, of it, so these manufactured.
Minimum.
Minimum width, which would be greater than, kind of
Right.
a standard single road.
May be requiring no more than a certain percentage in width than in depth. In other words,
So what's
So
to say
that
that
it's-
somebody doesn't drop like a trailer and then adds a second room and now it's not the same, now they've surpassed your minimum requirement? I mean, if
they want to get fancy, they're going to get fancy.
Can I ask a
Can we
question?
have,
Go ahead,
they need
yeah.
to have design control?
No design control, right? No.
No.
just
Can we say
we're doing dimensions.
like kind to the neighborhood or anything?
Yeah,
like
I
that?
mean, in here, there
Right,
is
'cause
that it
it's-
has to look,
Yeah.
it has to, look
That-
like
That's
similar.
exactly what I was going to get at, because I think
Appearance.
what Joe is concerned about is like a typical metal trailer that you plunk down in the yard and it looks like a trailer. But if you had, there are mobile homes that if you took the wheels off and you put them down, they look like a house. You put it on a foundation, and if it has
So-
similar materials to what the main
So
house
what-
has, it would look
What language do
fine.
we have then? Because you could put a container down there.
So the ADU and any modifications to the principal single-family dwelling on the lot shall be designed so that the appearance of the,
Principal dwelling
Dwelling unit.
remains that of a single family.
no, where is it?
Here to the principal single family.
11.2.2.2E. The appearance of the principal dwelling remains that of a single
Right.
family
The
dwelling.
principal
But
dwelling,
could we
but what about
add
the
something that
ADU?
says the ADU has to match in color and materials, the
No,
primary residence?
You'd want it to be something
No?
a bit more than that, where you say you want the ADU to be, let me see how this is worded here, shall be designed in appearance to be a single-family dwelling, is what you'd want.
Can't we just say
I
it can't
guess,
be a
you could-
trailer?
I mean, you could always say,
Hmm?
It can't be a trailer?
Can we just say what that, say what?
Or
that means?
container, if you put down a shipping
Yeah, I mean,
container,
we can-
that
we
could
can
work,
say what's
right?
excluded, can't we?
Where you exclude, but now you get into
Yeah,
minutia.
exclude containers and trailers as accessory dwelling units. But you have to be careful, because now there are people in town who have trailers that they take on vacation, and when they're not on vacation,
They
they
park 'em in the
park
yard.
them in the backyard.
Yeah, and if they have extra company sometimes.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's not, you're not getting a
It's not,
permit for an accessory dwelling unit for
So,
that. though. That's
so
a
if we do
different
that, if we say the ADU should have the appearance of a single-family dwelling, would that work for folks?
Well,
Yeah, but how does a garage look like a single family dwelling?
Well, it has a gabled roof, it has a door, it has siding on it, But that's up to the interpretation of the building inspector.
So the
the
ADU,
building inspector, yeah.
so this is it, so that the ADU has to look, shall be designed in the appearance of the principal single-family dwelling. So if you're gonna get a mobile home to put on the site, you probably would want to also have the principal dwelling be a ranch house.
Or
In
you
a
could,
mobile home.
or you could take the mobile home, and if you side it to look like your house, do we have a problem with
Yeah,
that?
we don't really.
No.
have a mobile home design.
I mean, I guess if you're still, it's gonna, if it's long and narrow, and you put it on your lot, no matter what you dress it up like, it's gonna look like a trailer, right? I mean, it's gonna look like a single wide, a double wide, whatever they call them. In other words,
Double wide. Well, that's
dimensions
wide.
are gonna have a lot to do with it,
Double wide could be 24 feet wide, too.
Right, which could be, yeah,
Which is a house.
could be the dimensions of a ranch house,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be.
so,
Staff, any further thoughts? Just, so get back to the height.
I know, so,
Can we put dimensions?
dimensions, but also, I am not familiar with how mobile homes are. Are they put on actual poured foundation?
they could,
Can be.
It can be.
they could, yeah.
They're not normally, but yeah, they could be.
Around here, they probably.
That would be an inexpensive way to build your ADU. You pour a foundation, you buy a mobile home,
Okay.
and you can put it down.
Next,
problem,
we'll go to Ms. Sutherland.
Can we make modifications to this after January town meeting?
Yes,
I would propose we settle the height issue. We do some research on preventing the mobile home, because we have to finalize this tonight. If we don't finalize this tonight, the
Yeah, we're gonna be
ADU
here forever.
passes as is without any regulations.
Mm-hmm.
So I would propose we
Anything else?
we agree on the height, do some more due diligence on how to prevent it looking like a mobile home, and then modify that.
I agree with that.
Joe, you okay with that?
Yeah,
Could
I mean,
Could we actually say no mobile homes? And then let the Attorney General say, you gotta take this piece out.
Well, you have to define what a mobile home is then. Is that in our
Do we
current
have a
bylaws?
definition of mobile home?
we should have one in our bylaw.
Okay.
Well-
I'm fine with 30 feet.
the thing is, it automatically loses its stature as a mobile home when you remove the wheels. That's what happens. Even though it's still a mobile home without wheels, it's,
What's even our definition?
within the bylaws, mobile home is defined, mobile home to be used for a predetermined period of time, which time may be extended by the inspector of buildings for the occupancy of a family whose dwelling has been damaged by fire or other cause until their permanent dwelling has been repaired or rebuilt.
We only have the definition of a temporary mobile.
Right.
Is this definition for a temporary mobile home, or does it say mobile home?
Temporary.
Is the
Oh,
only
temporary
definition, is this,
Yeah, but that's what they mean by accessory, that's what they're saying, is people put them on there when they're having the house rebuilt or
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
damaged fixed or whatever they're
Yeah.
doing,
So
and allow
now,
it for.
the thing
for a
that I
time.
brought up, which caused all of this, was people being able to put an apartment over their garage, and that 20 feet wouldn't be enough to do that. That having been said, they could go to the Board of Appeals, because that's a dimension.
So maybe we
Good.
say 30 feet, then we say no temporary, no mobile homes,
But we did the
Yeah.
definition of mobile home.
or, homes that formerly identified as mobile homes.
That was the way it was. We're getting very difficult.
Just call it what it is.
Formally identify as it.
Okay.
I think the way it's probably going to have to address that would be with dimensional requirements, like
Right.
So you're saying
no longer than, if you go a certain, length, it's got to go a certain width, so that it's more, the dimensions are not long and narrow
So
like a mobile home.
we're looking at more of a ratio then, we don't necessarily.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're looking at an aspect ratio.
A
of-
dimensional ratio that would,
the other
yeah.
question I have is, is a mobile home the same as a manufactured home?
No.
No,
No.
Yep. So
I
you,
think Jess is right, that we should settle the height thing and deal with the mobile home issues separately.
immediately
We need to get
after
this.
Yes.
to get
Yeah.
this moving.
In the next meeting.
Okay, so think about ratio, so if you think of a ratio 2 to 1, right? If you look at a box, so now you're going to go, you bring it down to somewhere that's, so I think the ratio is probably where to go versus pure
Yeah,
dimensions,
I
right?
think you're right.
So Joe, if you're okay with kind of thinking about that as we go forward in moving on the dimensional, the height? Okay?
I think we can.
Okay, perfect. We can kind of just do another, maybe not, Maytown, Maine, just slide.
Well, I wonder if there's anything we can put into this that we can change after that would immediately
Like,
address the mobile home piece.
if you say for ratios less than 2 to 1 or something,
Yeah, like if you figured it out, you could figure it out pretty easily if you knew the length of what a typical mobile home was. Then you'd say, okay, if it's that length, and it's going to be that length, then you have to have at least
you
this
look up the
width.
typical mobile home
I'm
length.
saying just as a stopgap to put it in there.
And then we
you
can
know,
always modify.
And then we can modify the dimensions or however we want to deal with it after.
Like the width can't be less than half the length. or
Something like that. Something like that, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I don't know if that's the right ratio.
Let's go back to the height while Caleb does his homework there. All
Okay.
right, so height.
Height.
Ms. LaRue, so
I
you're,
think we need to make it so that people can put an apartment above their detached garage,
But
because that's the most common and cost-effective way to build an ADU.
So then for, oh wait, sorry, is it the updated on?
But I'm just one person, and if everybody else doesn't like that, we can pass it the way it is, because people could go
So
and go to Board of Appeals and
to
get a variance for the height.
would it be, what if it says only allowing a maximum height of 20 feet for all detached ADUs with the exception of a garage?
With the exception of an ADU over a garage, perhaps.
Right. so
I'm okay
that-
with, I like that.
I think that would be
I
good,
think that's
because some
perfect.
people may want to put
Okay.
the apartment over a
You good with
garage.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good with
with
that,
that.
staff? Do you think that would
That's-
apply?
Keep you from having a three-story
Yep.
ADU
Yeah.
in the
Yep.
backyard.
Staff?
Well, maybe we have to
Yep.
specify, though, that then the ADU over the garage can only be one level.
Over a detached garage.
Over the-
Well,
Well,
a
that'd be
maximum,
forced by the height.
give a
Right, that would be-
maximum
okay,
height.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you could put the maximum height as the maximum height right now in
it's
Burlington.
still 30 feet.
30 feet.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'd rather have that anyway than have someone do an ADU and then
Right.
put a two-car garage next
Yeah,
to it.
because the
Then you're
home
looking at a bigger
values, if
footprint.
everybody's
Yeah.
putting these in their backyard,
Right.
I'd be
Right,
concerned that
right.
they're going to go down.
Staff, you think we're close? Okay?
Yes, and can I ask
Go ahead,
another
please.
question? We had talked about the driveways, and we talked, and I wanted to make sure the language is in there that the driveway has to be constructed in a manner to reduce or to minimize the,
Curb cuts?
Hot top, impervious surface.
to the impervious surface. Is that in here? Right.
Let me see where we are. Two-bedroom.
Is that going on, Caleb? Do you have a standard?
So according to Google, the
Ah.
life expectancy of a mobile home, it says anywhere between 30 to 50 years.
Okay.
So it depends on the materials, the care of the home, so
Yeah.
that's the range. Again, you could probably have shorter, maybe have
How about
longer.
dimensional? What's the typical dimension? What's the
The width to
width
length
and length?
ratio is roughly 1:3 to 1:5, depending on specific dimensions of the home.
1 to 3 to 1 to 5?
So, I mean, that's gonna be hard to regulate, given, I mean, what's the dimensions of a ranch? Probably 1:3 or 1:5. So how do you restrict that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I think this is,
Yeah,
I think.
this is a greater conversation that we're not going to
yeah.
have tonight.
I think we need to look at examples
Yep.
and ratios and stuff.
But a good point, and I think just to get this going for town meeting, I think if we take the action, put on the action list to revisit for this for trailers and mobile homes.
So
Okay?
the next time it could change would be May. So you
Right.
might have some people slip in and be grandfathered
That's correct.
before that, but
Unlikely.
the number
Yeah.
will probably be inconsequential.
Yep.
Where's the stuff about the driveways? Oh.
It's being added
Oh, okay,
as we speak.
okay,
Okay?
okay.
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
Good.
Should
Okay.
be designed in such a way to minimize impervious surface. That's really, I think, all we need to say.
Excellent. Good conversation on this.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so we're okay with impervious surface driveways and heights of detached ADUs over garages. Is that correct?
Yes.
Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
All right. That being said, staff, any other comments?
No.
One final round through our members here. Mr. Covino.
No, I'll
Ms.
stop.
Ms.
I'm good.
Rappaport.
All set.
Ms. LaRue. Ms. Sutherland.
I just would like to thank staff and members. I know we had to discuss this and decide on this very quickly.
Yep.
So, happy with where we're at.
Excellent. Mr. Impemba?
No, maybe, what we may want to think about in this case is that maybe if they, as you talk about dimension, if you talk about a ranch, your typical ranch might be 40 or 42 by 28, something like that, right? But a ranch would look odd if it was put on a lot sideways as well.
Right, yep,
Right?
yep.
So even if you
So
had
positioning.
a home that had the dimensions, maybe the dimensions of a mobile home, if
Yep.
you had it facing out and you didn't, and it wasn't facing sideways as, looking at it like it's a mobile home,
Yep.
a trailer,
Yep.
that might be how
Yep.
we might want to address how we set the ADUs on the site.
Good point. Thank you, Mr. Impemba. Ms. Natola? Okay. Anybody in the public want to speak? Oh, let's bring somebody up here. Okay? Do you have anybody online?
I'm not seeing anyone right now.
Okay,
no.
thank you. So, yes, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Sherry Ellis, Town Meeting Member and Zoning Bylaw Review Committee Member. If you could clarify, we really can't hear back there because of the air conditioning. So could you clarify what you just agreed to for the height of the
Yes.
ADUs? Because that was a question I had.
Staff, please.
So, I'm going to read it out loud. Building height for detached ADUs shall be no taller than the principal single-family dwelling unit with the exception of a detached garage, or a maximum of 20 feet, whichever is shorter. So you are allowed to build over 20, you're allowed to build over your garage.
Can we change that to say with the exception of an ADU over a detached garage?
And
Well, is it a detached garage? I mean, what if you're building a garage for your ADU? It's no longer a detached garage.
It's detached from the main dwelling.
Right, but it's not a detached garage any longer. It's a garage that goes with the ADU.
I don't
A detached
think we
garage
can
is
do
a
that.
garage.
I don't,
Why? You can have a garage with your ADU.
Yeah, then it's a principal dwelling, isn't it? Wouldn't it be defined as a principal dwelling if you have a garage attached to it versus an accessory dwelling unit?
So,
Why? Why can't an accessory dwelling have a
So-
garage?
Yeah,
I might have solved it. With
Okay.
the exception of an ADU over the principal detached garage. So it has
Oh.
to be over, does that?
Yeah.
No, say that again, so,
So with the exception of an ADU being built over the principal detached garage. So that means that it's specifying that the garage can't be,
Could be attached or could be,
well, that doesn't address it, because that doesn't address the fact that you should be able to have a garage with your ADU, right?
yeah, yes,
Okay.
but this is just for height. This is, you can have a garage
Okay.
for your ADU. if
Yeah,
you
but
would say.
but we're talking about it only in the case where we have a detached garage, going above a detached garage. We don't talk about it going above a garage in general, the garage for the ADU. We talk about, we're only referencing it in reference to a detached garage.
You're talking built a new garage. with
Build a new
ADU
garage,
outside.
right, with it, so the ADU has a garage, right?
what's wrong with that?
There shouldn't be anything wrong with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
But in this case, we're only talking about a detached garage
Right.
and an ADU over a detached garage.
Right.
Detached garage means that that garage is for the primary residence,
yeah.
not for the ADU. It's no longer a detached garage.
Well, it's detached from the primary residence.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what a detached garage is. So it's
Right.
now, it's not a detached garage if it's a garage that's built for the
Well,
ADU.
it's still detached from the primary residence.
So is the ADU.
I feel like
Yes.
we're in
Right,
2.0
but-
right now. Because it's, but,
It's not gonna
Right.
limit what you're
Yeah.
asking.
no, I don't think so.
What you're asking is still possible.
Right, so when we go height-wise, we just say we can't, shouldn't reference a detached garage at all. It should be built over a garage, whether it's detached or whether
Oh,
it's
okay.
a garage built
I
for
see
the
what you're
ADU.
saying. So you're saying we should
Any-
just take
any
this and take out the word detached?
Right, a garage, whether it's
Detached, an
attached,
ADU
detached,
built
or whatever.
over a
So it just
garage.
says over a garage.
Okay,
over a
I'm
garage.
fine
It's
with
been
that.
I think we're
done.
okay.
Okay,
Easy. Look at
I
that.
think we're okay with that.
magic.
Detached can't be over, can't be 20, except if it's over a garage, whether it's attached or detached, then we're good. Done. Okay.
So what is the height for an attached
30.
ADU?
30.
30,
30
which
because
is the height of any, that's the building height for anybody.
that's according to section 5.2 in the bylaw is our height, is our dimensional table. And the dimensional requirement in the RO district is 30 feet in height.
Okay, I'm not sure that's really clear, but okay, so we'll go from there. So the other issue that we talked about a lot last week, or last meeting, was the access driveway, only allowing one. And we talked, I think, about a special permit for a second.
I
Where did that resolve?
think
I think what we did
I think
is
we took it out.
changed it to that the driveway must be designed in a manner that minimizes the amount of impervious surface.
Is that, so it's on the board right there, Sherry.
There's also, on 11.2.2.2.H, only one access driveway shall be permitted on a lot containing an ADU.
Right,
Oh, I thought we were supposed
that's what I was reading. So where's
Take it
this
out?
part?
What section?
Yeah,
I can take it out.
because that could end up with a long circuitous driveway to the ADU that increases the amount of impervious surface, and we don't
Yep.
want to do that.
Well, impervious surface is not a very
Nowhere.
good verbiage, I don't think anyways, because it's, I mean, you could use blocks
Gravel
that have, you could use pervious surface that doesn't look like, that still looks like a driveway, right? I mean,
Pavers, but
yeah, I mean, so are we concerned about the driveway, or are we concerned about the actual imperviousness of the surface?
I think in this one, we were concerned about the multiple driveways there.
So the driveways, not the impervious part of
Think-
the surface, right? So,
I think we're trying to solve it that way, but I think with the multiple driveways, I think that was what we're trying to keep it consistent with what single-family looks like.
right.
Yeah.
So we don't want to be talking about impervious surface, we just want to address it as a driveway.
So, let me just see what it says here. Park the off-street designated driveway area or garage. The location and appearance of a driveway shall not adversely affect the joint position, family, and character of the neighborhood in general. Okay, so now we crossed out, only one access driveway shall be permitted on a lot containing an ADU. So the state law says you must have
One parking space.
one parking space. So it doesn't require us to have a driveway for the ADU.
Right, doesn't require us to have a driveway going to the ADU.
That's
It doesn't
just-
prevent
it's
that.
Just one
But
off.
Are you prohibited from putting in a driveway?
You could put in a driveway, you'd have to go through the selectmen to get a curb cut,
Okay, but you're not
A
prohibited.
separate driveway.
separate
A
driveway.
You could have, right now, you could have a driveway, your same curb cut you have, and then do a driveway off of that
You could do that.
driveway, so you could have an additional driveway off of your existing
An
driveway. But
additional parking spot, like a,
that doesn't require an additional curb cut.
Right.
You couldn't just
Sherry?
assign one from your driveway?
Liz, where was the other statement? You crossed that one off. Where's the one that you had? Because I don't,
I think that this one was added. I think that we're also going to get this, I just added them.
okay, good, because I don't have an N. All right, so that's where that ended up. Okay, thank you.
So where are we on driveway?
so I would ask the board, and I'll go down, I'll start over here with Tony Ann. So with regard to driveways, would you want to limit it just to what the state law says, to say you must have a parking space?
I think a parking space, because if you have a big enough driveway, you could assign the one spot in your driveway. It would make sense that you don't have to either make the bump out or a separate. I think so.
Okay. Joe?
My concern with that is just more that, a lot of these, people have lots that go back 200, 300 feet, right? So if you're gonna put that ADU way in the back, how are you gonna, without getting access with a driveway, we're gonna have like a big, long walkway?
Big, long walkway,
Right,
yep.
and then have all the
Yep.
cars, you're gonna have basically two families full of cars in the front of the house?
Yep.
Instead of putting a couple of cars back where the ADU is and having a garage back there and putting them underneath, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it looks a lot nicer than it does if you got all these cars out.
Well, if you're
right?
going to go to that expense, so I think the idea here is that you're keeping it to look like a single-family house versus having that house that's going to be in the back. So now you're looking at two houses on one lot versus an accessory unit, if you put the driveway in the house, in the back house.
Yeah, I mean, but,
It'd
again,
be like a pool house, right? You just have a walkway right back to there. I think the idea is that the intent of it, the problem you're trying to solve is to have additional housing and to keep the character of the neighborhood of a single-family neighborhood. Now,
That's what I'm
now we're starting to change that to put separate driveways and things like that. So, all depends what we want to do. Go ahead.
However, though, in the spirit of the law and enabling people who are aging out of their homes to require them to go to a walkway for an aging adult, I think is not wise. I think we need to allow for easier access to the ADU in the spirit of what it is going to probably be used for.
My thought to that is that let's further go down that and say, let's get everything handicap accessible, right, for those aging folks. So I think if we can get a fundamental, basic thing here and move forward, I think it's probably the way we want to go. We could go into the minutia on this all day long, which sounds like we're doing.
I think the reality is that it's a horrible law, but
Well, then.
it is what it is. We gotta deal with it
We
now,
have to
right?
deal with it, and
So I would tend to go the way of a minimal driveway, as minimal as you can make it, so that people can have the access to a garage. If they want to have a garage, you can have cars, all two house full of cars are going to be jammed into one driveway up at the front, at the street. So you're looking at basically, let's say these people have 4 cars in their house, and then the ones in the back have 2 cars. You got 6 cars. Now you're putting in the front of a house, and you're not allowing them to do anything with that other than put them in the front of the house,
Yep.
I mean, we're forcing them to basically put them in the front of the house versus bring a couple of them back and put them in the garage if they wanted to, whatever, how they wanted to do
Ms.
it.
LaRue.
I understand Joe's concern, and I'm wondering if maybe we should limit the number of parking spots for the ADU to 1.
So now you don't have two in the back, you got one in the back.
You mean limited to one?
That's
One
on the
spot
state?
for the ADU.
What does the state law say on that?
It says you have to provide one spot for the ADU. And I'm saying maybe we limit it to one for the ADU. But I still like the language that says you have to design the driveway in a manner that reduces or that minimizes the amount of impervious surface. I don't think we want a long circuitous driveway getting people to their ADU.
Could still be paved.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It can still be pervious. It can still be, it could be, you could make it as wide as you want, as long as it was pervious surface.
Yeah,
So I would rather have us deal with the minimizing the garage,
cuts.
the driveway
so
itself.
there's one driveway, and you have to give one space to the ADU.
Right.
right?
But,
Okay.
but again, is that space back where the ADU is, or is it, are we going to force them to put it in the driveway of the primary
Yeah,
house?
yeah.
So that's really what it comes down to.
What does this say then? Does it
So
allow-
I haven't,
No, currently as written, does it allow a space to be in front of the ADU? If it's in the backyard?
it doesn't say, it says, I think you could.
Okay.
Yeah, all motor vehicles
Right.
maintained by occupants of the ADU shall be parked off the street in a designated driveway area or garage.
Yep. So you can take your driveway and then take off that driveway, go all the way to the back and put one there. Yep, you can do that.
I mean, we certainly could maybe make it be impervious, make it be pervious if we wanted. It would say, well, we'll allow your driveway, but it's got to be pervious.
So if somebody already
Ms.
has,
Replet, go ahead.
if somebody has an existing garage, they're already going to have a driveway to go
That's
back there, right?
I would think.
So does that right change because they're adding an ADU above the garage?
No. I
Because
think-
now,
Grandfathered in?
well, they were grandfathered in because they had the garage, but they didn't have the ADU, and the ADU law says that we
Well,
only
yeah.
have one driveway. So now do they have to change the driveway that already exists to the
But that
existing
garage is still, so that garage is actually still, that's truly a detached garage. It just happens to have an ADU above it. Now, I'm saying when you build an ADU, can you put a garage underneath it? And if you did that, then there'd be a need for a driveway to go back there.
As long as it's under 900 square feet, you could,
What's that?
as long as it's under 900
Well, that's what
square
I'm saying.
feet.
Well, no, I mean, the
space doesn't
garage
count for
isn't living
900.
area, so you're not,
That's
that's not, that's basement, might as well be basement.
I mean-
It doesn't say you can't have, you
Yeah.
also can have a basement, right?
Yeah, living
Which
area.
is not living
But that's below
areas.
grade, that's not living areas.
I
so
understand,
it-
so that's what I'm
Right.
saying.
So, I mean, to Bill's point, I think we could pick this thing apart all night. I think we should, agree on the height. And to Jessica's point, I think, we have the 2.0 version come up afterwards, and we can really figure out what
Mr.
are the
Covino,
issues.
thank you. Mr. Covino.
Why mention garages at all in the ADU regulation? Why not, let's assume there's already a house on the lot, so there's one driveway, right? Why mention the second driveway at all, or the number of driveways? Because number one, it's going to require, the second one will require a curb cut from the selectmen. Whether people get them or not.
Won't require it.
If they don't, somebody will complain, and
Won't-
then
it
the
won't-
selectmen will tell them to close the curb cut.
Yeah.
But the selectmen's not going to be willing, or at least, I haven't heard recently, but when I've heard hearings on second curb cuts, the selectmen, past boards of selectmen anyways, have been pretty stringent on, you don't really need it, or yes, you do have a reason.
But it's not going to require a curb cut. It doesn't necessarily require a curb cut. You can use the same curb cut and just as you enter, they can enter your curb cut and then just go off onto their own
Well, yeah, you can. do that.
driveway. So it's, widen the driveway or how.
So this, what we're saying here, second driveway, only one driveway doesn't cover that. You could do that, the way it's written now. That's what
can.
you're saying.
Yeah, you
Because
can-
that
That's
wouldn't
right.
be a second driveway, that would be the same driveway.
That's right.
That's
So,
correct.
so the point is, are we going to try to limit what gets additionally built as driveway going
No,
back?
I would say we shouldn't do that. I'd say the.
So we shouldn't do
selectmen
it.
should that.
Well, they can't. They can
Yes,
only,
Yes, they can,
they can do the curb cut. They can address the curb cut, yeah.
right. And as far as I'm concerned, curb cuts equal driveways.
No, it's not true,
You're
though.
saying two driveways off one curb cut.
No, they're saying it's the same driveway off the.
No.
Yeah, you same drive, so you can extend your
But what you
driveway
can do
back
is you
there.
can,
widen your driveway,
you
do
can
whatever.
pave your backyard, the entire
You
backyard.
can pave your whole.
And we'll call it a big driveway, so I think that the case is moot here.
But
That's
if
right.
we say that the ADU must have one parking space and can only have one parking space, there's no incentive for people to spend all that money creating a long paved driveway if they can only have one space back there. They're going to do it in the most cost-effective way. That's going to be the shortest distance.
What if Joe says they build the ADU over a new
Right,
Yeah, but they s-
and they should be able to, right?
hit the...
Yeah, they need a driveway.
Yeah.
Everyone's agreeing that they should be able to put it over a garage.
No, that
Yeah.
would be a use variance.
Well, no, because they would have to get a second curb cut, or they would just have to extend the driveway back to which people do now.
Okay.
I don't know. So I guess I'm a little bit, I just want to confirm, the problem that we are trying to solve is the concern about homeowners extending their driveways into the back to accommodate an ADU.
They can do that today.
They can do that now.
Yeah, but there's no ADUs back there today. So in other words, now they're going to have a reason to put one in. So we're going to see more of them. So if we don't address it, we're
And
shame on us.
we
'cause
can,
I think we're
we
gonna
can
have to
address
see
it by the impervious surface statement. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Now,
more. So as long as,
But they can do it today if they add a garage back there. It doesn't
Right.
have to
they
be an
can,
ADU.
but the reality is this. This is going to way more incentivize another driveway, because anyone who gets an ADU is going to want to put another driveway back there. Most people, most people are not looking to add a detached garage to their house right now. They either buy a house with a garage, or they usually attach the garage to the house because it's more convenient for them. Nobody adds a detached garage in and of itself. So this is going to be, it's going to create problems that we need to address. And so if we don't address them, it's not, no, I mean, I think it's shame on us if we don't address them, because it's in our face that it's going to happen. So I think, I think the more we can take it by the horns and think about these things that are going to happen and address them, the better off we're going to be.
So again, the problem we're trying to solve is the potential additional driveways, pervious driveways going to the back of a
But
house.
why don't we want them to have a driveway that goes to the ADU?
I didn't say that. I think
Oh,
we
okay.
do.
So what's the,
I
pro-
think
so
we
what's
do.
the- what's the problem? What are we trying to, what are we trying to, what's the issue? What are we trying to
the issue
put more
is-
guard bands on?
Well, you're saying we shouldn't allow it. I'm saying we should allow it. You're saying we need to keep it as more residentially,
To
the
look.
way it is right now. And I'm saying, well, the fact is, some people may want to have a garage with it, so they got to have the cars be able to get back there, right? So how do we address that?
so the language we have
We
now,
address it,
Yes.
All right.
because it says is least pervious surfaces.
so we can do it that way, and that will allow them to do it with impervious surface as they want, which
Back.
keeps it
Well,
more,
it doesn't require it, by the way.
no,
Right, so fine, let them
minimize
build a
the
pervious
the
driveway.
impervious.
It's a should, it's not a shall, so.
Yeah.
And so, my experience, that shoulds don't get done.
That's right, that's exactly, that's right.
Okay, so back to, so are we okay as, Sherry, thank you. So are we, just checking with the board here, so we're okay with Sherry's comment, but with the parking, are we good with the language currently on here as written?
I am. I'm good with everything right now.
Everybody, good. Height, good.
Yep.
Sherry, please.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I asked that question.
And now you're going to ask another one.
No, I'm not going to ask any more questions, just a couple points of more wording. Sure. So in your definition of dwelling unit accessory, I would suggest writing ADU in there with that. And then go through, and a lot of times you have one-family dwelling, which is the correct term, but sometimes you have single-family dwelling. So just go through and get all those
Be consistent, yeah.
changed. And then in item, let's see, what number is that? 11222, applicability and requirements on letter L. It should be divided into two separate lots, not onto two separate lots. Other than that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Sherry.
Ellis.
Oh,
Thank you,
okay.
Sherry.
Okay.
She ran.
So I think this is very good discussion, and with the time frame we have with regard to the state law and when we have to put this in place makes it very difficult to,
Yes.
particularly where the state has not documented their requirements as well.
Correct.
Okay? So I as well want to thank the staff and thank the board here for all this good, great, kind of discussion on what potentially could happen to these ADUs, because the intent versus how it's written and how folks can apply it. So, thank you. Yes, Ms. Sutherland.
Motion to close the public meeting on this matter?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7-0-0. Thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to recommend favorably on the petition to amend Article 2 definitions, Article 4 use regulations, Article 11 special residential regulations of the zoning bylaws to bring the zoning bylaws into alignment with state laws regarding accessory dwelling units, ADUs, as amended, submitted by the planning board.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed? Abstain? 6-1-0. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm on the record, I'm opposing it because I believe that it's an absolutely outrageous, ridiculous law that they're forcing on the cities and towns, and that's why I'm opposing it.
Right, but if we don't do this,
Well,
they can
I
do
think-
anything.
We could.
You're opposing the law, you're not opposing our
Every
bylaw.
city and town can keep on doing this. They can allow the state to come down and force us to do things, and we can keep on saying, well, if we don't do this, we're going to, I think the cities and towns need to stand up for themselves and talk sense, and that's not happening right now, unfortunately, but.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. So there's an opportunity here for, as the state continues to provide these laws that,
And they're continuing to do it. The more they get away with, the more they're doing. The
and
more-
we're trying to, put it in the best
Yeah,
light that we can,
We're trying
with
to-
difficulty in a short period of time.
damage control.
Yeah,
That's what we're
exactly
doing.
right. We're reacting
Scramble around
versus
damage control.
participating.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
unfortunate, yeah.
Item 7B is a public hearing amendment to Article 3, Districts, Article 4, Use Regulations, and Article 10, Miscellaneous and Special Regulations of the zoning bylaw, the creation of a new mixed-use innovation district, MIX, submitted by the Economic Development Office. Melissa?
Thank you, Planning Board, for allowing me to revisit you yet again. Although this is part of the public hearing process, I appreciate your time and your consideration over the several months on this initiative. And today we have here our Select Board member, Mike Espejo, who we talked about him coming here tonight just to give some context. But Chairman Gaffney, if it's okay, I'd like to go through the presentation briefly. It's not exactly the same. I just wanted to give a little background given the public hearing and the context for the zoning initiative.
Okay, thank you. Yep, briefly, and then things that you've modified since the last time.
Thank you. So for the record, my name is Melissa Tintaklis. I work as the Economic Development Director. This is a community-driven zoning proposal that is before Planning Board tonight, but that is intended to go to town meeting for January. I forgot this one doesn't do that very well. One moment. Why this proposal? I just want to go back and give a little context. The issues we're trying to address. So, is that me or you moving it?
It's you.
Okay. The issues we're trying to, oh, I see, thank you. Is that me?
Yep, that's you.
Control issues, okay, thank you. So I'm just going to try to do one thing here, because I have two screens. Apologize. Okay. Yes, can you help me with that? Thank you. Thank you, Caleb. Side job. These?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the issues we're trying to address, it's good that they've been on this screen for a little longer because there's 4 main issues. The post-pandemic, limitations on our current zoning, the sprawling patterns that we have currently that we'd like to kind of start to change that hinder our sustainability, and then fulfilling our community goals that we had set out over the last 10 to 15 years. Oh. Still having trouble. Okay. As many of you know, our vacancies have increased over the last 6 months. In particular, it's forecasted to continue to go up. Currently, we are at 9.7 in 19.7% in office vacancies.
How does that compare, just a quick, how does that
Yes.
compare statewide?
Well, the Boston metro area is at 17%. Nationwide, it depends on kind of which market you're into. I think the most recent market was San Francisco is the highest, up to 20%. So depending on where you're looking at, we are on the higher end.
But it's all.
It's
pretty-
all
It's
up.
all pretty close to normal, right? I mean, we're right in the norm for the most part. Even the Boston metro area, which is probably the most occupied, is a short amount off of where we're at, right? Is that?
Yes, so if you can see this, the average had been into the 14%, 10 to 14 prior to COVID.
Right.
And then what we've seen is over the years, that green total vacancy line has been steadily increasing. That is for Burlington specifically. And so that's the line we're kind of concerned at and we're kind of been looking at. Most recently, we've had, as of this week, another example of some of the issues that we're facing as Oracle has decided to put on the market over 400,000 square feet of space. So I think there was a lot of concern in the moment of the pandemic, what we were expecting to see and what is maybe transpiring now is as leases end and companies are finding, ways to shrink their footprint, and they're looking at certain areas, Class A office, or they're looking at the better amenitized areas to lease, but this trend is happening over and over, so that's why we're seeing more vacant office space, given the remote work and given costs, so that's kind of some of the things we're seeing. Just being mindful of this, vacancies equals questions on abatements and values, and we also have, costs on the town that we're looking at, so we want to be mindful of that. That's how it ties into economic development and land use. Our current zoning, as you know, Planning Board, it's BG. It hasn't been modified much since the 60s. That's the red area. PDDs have been our way of addressing some of the changes in meeting market preferences. Those are the orange areas. And then we've had some industrial areas that have been purple. But what we're trying to do is update the zoning so it not only allows for infill growth, but accommodates market preferences. And through this process, we see that this is an opportunity to create more sustainable development. As you allow new buildings, you allow new best practices and better ways to address heat islands, stormwater runoff, and incorporate more green space. Approximately 10 years ago, we adopted or conducted and started our comprehensive master plan. And if you go through that plan, there's about 20 recommendations about walkability, compact development, mixed use. Now, those are blueprints and guidelines, and what we're bringing to you as a zoning proposal is that street-level implementation, how to get those big goals done. How we got here, we kind of looked back to some of the past successes we've had with the approvals of PDDs, some of our original areas that we have dedicated to commercial, And I want to take note of that because in a lot of communities, there is transformational zoning, there's enhancing zoning, and there's preserving zoning. And that, in our community, our preservation has been around the single-family home. That is not being touched. The commercial district is what we've been looking at and which we're trying to enhance with this zoning. Even prior to for me being here, the position was the economic development position was created to explore policies and programs to help support our community and ensure that we remain competitive. And so part of the proposal and part of my obligation in this job and bringing this proposal forward is to do just that, to give not the planning board, but the community our best thinking and the best proposal that kind of balances community's desires, goals, back to that master plan, and then market feasibility. And leading that in classic kind of, community engagement and process was to start to listen beyond hearing the initial economic development objectives of the community and town officials through my, coming on board to Burlington. We began a really thorough community engagement process to hear what people wanted, desired, and could withstand as we explored opportunities in the development area. And we, are taking a real, I would say, business-minded private sector approach with this also, and understanding the feasibility. So this is not just pie in the sky policy, or planners' ideas. These are rooted in the values that we see nationwide. This little graph here is done by CBRE, and that hot pink green area down here in the corner is Boston and Seaport. That's the vibrant mixed use. And going back to Joe's question on occupancy, whereas most communities are trending towards 20% office vacancies in areas like the Seaport, where there's a lot of amenities, residential and office and R&D, you're seeing about 11% of vacancy and higher rent. So almost half.
But it's the Seaport.
It is the Seaport, but
Burlington's
the
not the Seaport.
I don't want
Right.
the Seaport either.
Right, but the idea is that when you're looking at the patterns of what works and what creates values, the idea is creating a mix of uses enables that. So you're not looking at recreating the spitting image of that at all. I think what we're trying to do is, again, best practices and pull lessons learned into the zoning and the proposal that you see. So just transitioning, as you know, what we're proposing is a revised map, uses. So in that packet, you'll have one new column that says mixed use. It has all the uses that are allowed, that blends the BG and the innovation district uses. And it has rules for how new buildings should look. It includes 12 parcels in here. The hot pink area is the new zoning district. It would replace the innovation and business or general business, the older models, and create this kind of a hybrid or new zoning district, so it's not an overlay. This is what your packet includes, the rules, and then the uses along with that map. As you know, we've talked about this several times. This has not changed. The integration of residential remains the same. The requirement of 20% open space, and the commercial buildings trying to remain commercial dominant, with requiring the mix to stay about a 60-40 split on development sites as they come before planning board. This is new. In your bylaw, you will have more graphics that explain more explicitly what outdoor amenity space looks like and what building types should look like. And over time, the goal is to create a more walkable, more green, village-oriented development in our mall and commercial corridor that can be better connected through the public realm and open space. I think that's where we have the community benefits. Moving this forward from the community side, that's what we're aiming to go for. Not only economic sustainability, but the environmental gains and really livability, making it a place that you want to live. Again, what can be built for those at home, just to be very clear, it is allowing multifamily up to 70 feet, and it's allowing commercial and hotel uses up to 120 feet. As we've talked about before, this is not a development or a PDD or a developer initiative that's coming to you saying we have this project. It is laying the groundwork for different projects to come before the planning board. But throughout this, the underlying factors are public realm, open space, and sustainable development that's embedded in those bylaws. Well, how tall is that? What is 70 feet? It's about the Archer Hotel. We looked at the context of other buildings throughout Burlington. You have examples here. I will not get into that too much, as we know that. It is not the Charles River building. That is 185 feet. It is very much in the zone that has been approved on the left. That is the district, and those buildings B, C, and A are all in the 120-foot zone that were approved just last year, and that's what is allowed for commercial. Well, we talked about this a little bit from the last meeting. How many residential units is that? That had been a number one concern. And I want to make this very clear that we understand that, you know, incorporating new housing it's a tough, it's controversial, right? We want to allow new housing opportunity, but we're concerned about costs. We're concerned about what things look like. And I think with this, the thing that we've given a lot of thought to is strategically where we are locating new housing and how we can leverage that to benefit and strategically use that to add value and enhance our commercial district. We have 8 million square feet of office in Burlington. Interjecting certain housing not only supports the retail, it brings in new people who have new ideas, who rent new office space. It has a very synergistic appeal by bringing in new residential, aside from bringing in new opportunity for residents to locate here and stay in Massachusetts. Okay. Did I just do that again?
So you didn't answer how many residential units
I just was going to try to get there. I don't know. Caleb, do you mind to help me again? I'm so frustrated.
Here.
There we go. Did I get it?
Yep.
Yes. So how many units? Okay, let's just go to this. Yes. No, everyone's waiting, right? So we did a fiscal impact analysis just so it's rooted again in professional expertise of real estate analysts who look at this. We were able to secure a $50,000 grant. We worked with Landwise. They helped us develop projections for a 10-year period. We have in this area, over about 10 years, 1.2 square feet of space can be built, can be absorbed. And as we talked about from last week, Joe, Selectman Joe put forward, well, can it be built tomorrow? Well, theoretically, if the zoning is adopted and the market was right, all the square footage could be adopted. Will it be? No, because part of our process has been engaging in with the property owners, with the businesses, and we understand what the limitations are, what agreements are in place for parking, what leases are in place. But we really wanted to go through this exercise. So from our projections over 10 years, it's 750 units. That would yield approximately 1,125 residents, and that's about 62 school-age children. What will this cost the town? So through that analysis, you know, we estimated that almost $10 million will be involved in the cost to provide new services. But the tax revenue that would come from this projected development is about $62 million. So the town still nets positive almost $53 million over the 10-year period. What oversight does planning board have? That was a question that came up at the last meeting. So we wanted to make sure that this was clear. 2 months ago, I came to the board and provided a draft of rules and regulations, design guidelines and standards that would supplement the new bylaw. If the board members have gone through it, we're still working on cleaning that up to make it a little bit more user-friendly. But that's the first line to ensure some oversight. It shapes the expectation of the developer before a project even comes in. And then the typical process, at pre-application discussion with planning staff, with the new supplemental guidelines, you have site plan review. Staff could speak to it more explicitly how that is done. We have written explicitly that an architect would be providing recommendations to the planning board to offer a little bit more in-depth analysis for design consultation. And then for certain projects, in particular the residential, larger scale residential would require a special permit from the planning board. Well, what about traffic? So if we can make sure those things are addressed, what about traffic? Well, traffic is obviously a regional issue and cannot be addressed in a zoning bylaw or even under one large development project. It's a multifaceted approach, so when projects come in, we will do our typical review through engineering and mitigation. We know that by practical numbers and best practices, integrating housing in amenitized areas encourages chaining trips. So once you park once, whether it's for your job or whether it's for your housing, you are able to start to chain trips, reducing getting in the car and going somewhere else. The zoning requires improved public realm, which just enhances walkability and the desire to walk to somewhere else. Walkability is not just a sidewalk. It's an attractive, safe area to walk. So I just want to keep that in mind. We were awarded $1 million for MassWorks to improve Middlesex Turnpike's pedestrian connectivity. We're working right now with MAPC on a mobility action plan for the commercial district. And when we start investing, not only by changing our land use, but through private and public investments, we can start to direct efforts to enhance our transit, which we already have MBTA, LRTA, and L'Express shuttle running through this area. But then someone's asked, well, how do we know this will even work? So we did a case study. And the case study is in our backyard with about 100 acres in 3rd Avenue. It's the Northwest Park PDD. And as you know, this kind of probably looks familiar. It's the parcels that were part of that PDD. In 2005, the values were relatively low. And now if you look to the right in 2024, all those values have increased. And even the buildings that have not changed much. So I think that's important to note, if I can. So even if some of these existing buildings that may not have gone through redevelopment, but because they're adjacent to redevelopment, adjacent to the housing, they have increased in value. And so that same area, if we adjusted for inflation today, if we did nothing or did the status quo, would bring in $3.2 million. Today, that same area with the housing brings in $6.3 million. So with that, tried to address some questions from our last public hearing. And we have Mike Espejo here as well from the Select Board. I don't know if you want to say anything.
We'll let him speak to the
Oh, yeah.
public
Okay.
session, so we'll go over to staff.
Okay.
I have no comments on this. No comment.
Okay. Let me start over with Vice Chair Sutherland.
I'm going to start by reading a letter we received by Select Board Member Sarah Cawley into record. Planning board members, I apologize for not being there tonight, but I wanted to voice my support for the mixed-use zoning initiative. I believe this is an opportunity and a vision for the future of the Mall Road area. It provides a framework with flexibility for developers, but with enough structure so that we get what we want out of it as a town. Diversifying the ways certain parcels can be used will reinvigorate that area to be a blend of work, living, dining, and entertainment. The financial impact analysis shows that this is likely to have a positive impact on our office vacancy rate, an ongoing concern, especially as Oracle recently announced a drastic downsize, a substantial increase in tax revenue, improved walkability of the area, and add additional housing supply, especially the smaller 1 to 2 bedroom units that we've heard from area businesses are desirable for their workers and staff. If we stay with the status quo, we might be okay, but in my opinion, that is more of a risk for the town. I have confidence that with this vision and the planning board's continued involvement throughout the process, we can curate a dynamic and thriving area of town that benefits Burlington as a whole in the long run. Thank you, Sarah Cawley.
Okay. All right. From your perspective, anything additional?
No, I mean, I think it's, no surprise. I've been heavily involved in this, huge in favor. As was mentioned, this was not a plan developed in haste. This was a culmination of work done consistently for well over a year, seeking community input and being led by experts in their respective fields. I do think it's important, which Joe had brought up last meeting, that we understand what is the worst case scenario. It's helpful knowing that information, and at the same time, I know that we collectively want to be the standard that towns strive to be. And I think based on the most likely scenario, which thank you for sharing that today, of this plan, that will help lead to important, sustainable, and forward-thinking growth, which is critical for this town, especially with the vast municipal investments that we need to make and want to sustain. I think there are risks in every decision we make. This is one that I feel like is a risk worth taking, given all of the in-depth and detailed work that went into this. So I hope that although change is uncomfortable and some folks are risk adverse, I hope that we feel confident in all of the work that's been put into this.
Thank you, Ms. Edlin. Mr. Impemba?
In theory, it sounds like a great plan. I think, in my opinion, and it's my opinion, every time I've been on a campaign trail, I've public office for 34 years, every time I've been on a campaign trail, every time I've spoken to people in town, the biggest problem that comes up, every politician, when they're going to, trying to run for office in town, I'm going to address the traffic problem, I'm going to address the traffic, I'm going to address it. Everyone talks about the traffic in Burlington. And we're talking about a fairly small geographically area down there that abuts residential area. And yet, we're talking about an area that's already got a phenomenal amount of traffic down there, and we're going to add another 1.2 million square feet, which is basically the size of Sun Micro's, the whole, and I don't know if how many people have been out to the Sun Micro campus and seen the whole campus. Basically, you're looking at something that size, additional square footage into that small area. I have no idea how anybody thinks that's sustainable. I don't see how it could happen. You got a roadway down there. There's no way you're widening that roadway. And even if you did widen the roadway, is that what you want? Like a 2-3 lane highway going through that area? I wouldn't, not if, especially if I was living down there. But the reality is, you're not going to be able to accommodate that traffic. So everything sounds well, and 668, that sounds pretty good too. 68 kids into the school system. I doubt that very much if you're going to be adding that kind of square footage, with a lot of it being residential. I doubt you're talking about 68 additional kids into the school system. So I think there's things that have not been contemplated, and I think that we're looking at this, what appears to be a great plan. Oh yeah, we love the walkabout. I like that as well. I think but I don't think that, when we talk about we need to stay on the cutting edge, I think Burlington is considered the standard right now. And I don't think we need this to be considered the standard. I mean, when I talk to mayors and heads of other towns around here, cities and towns around here, and they turn around and look at me when I say, oh, you have great restaurants, and they look at me and say, and Burlington's the envy of every city and town in Massachusetts with what we have in this town. That's why you can't get a reservation at a restaurant now. and we're worried about not having people to use in the restaurants and I've never, we went over to the mall over this last weekend again. Couldn't find a parking spot. I said to my wife, I said, look at this parking lot as you're driving in. Can you see a single spot in that whole lot? And I'm talking about even on the outskirts of the lot. Not a single spot in that parking lot. I don't know what we're going to be doing with all the additional cars and all the additional traffic and all the additional people, where we're going to be putting these people, but I certainly can tell you one thing, Burlington's not losing its edge. So to be growing by this amount in these kinds of leaps and bounds in that small geographic area, I think we're not really thinking about all the problems that are going to come along with this. That's really what my concern is, and I think, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and I've seen how projects impact. We haven't seen the impact of the ADUs. We haven't seen the impact of the new laws that they're putting into play, forcing other units on. We haven't seen the impact of any of that. We haven't even seen the impact of the district yet. I mean, we haven't seen the impact of that build-out yet on that same area. But this is above and beyond what that's going to add to that area. I remember when that was in front of us, all the concerns we had about that intersection down there. Well, that pales in comparison to what we're going to be adding to that intersection with this. And it's not like you've got room to widen these roads, nor would it, most people, I think if you pulsed the town and said, would you want the town to grow in those leaps and bounds in that part of town? I don't think you'd I think you'd be hard pressed to find a person in town that would want to see that kind of additional growth down there. So I think, you know, these are things that people need to be thinking through, and I don't necessarily think that's happening, but whatever, it's just my opinion, and I'm qualifying it with the fact that it's only my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Impemba. Ms. Natola?
I agree with Joe that the concept is really nice, but have we taken into consideration with like the new president-elect ordering federal workers back to work and no more working from home and things like that, that if it picks up in the next few years, changes that people have to come back to work, and that's what they want, that we're going to be able to handle all this, plus if people do come back to work, because that has been now said that they'll either get laid off or they're coming back to work. I mean, do we know if they could come back, like, or are they just getting rid of that space, or?
Well, a lot of the companies are too, the federal government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know for
Amazon
that
has a
they said
hard return to office.
that they're saying.
I'm not sure you can answer that question, but so, but
Well,
when,
right, in terms of, yeah, I think in terms of, you know, what we have, we're a little bit more susceptible because the ones who are more positioned for remote work are, you know, finance, tech, and our office does have a lot of those type of tenants. The ones are least susceptible. I'm not familiar with exact policies on the federal positions, but the least susceptible are the ones that we have been trying to cultivate, the life science, R&D, hands-on collaboration in these buildings. So that has been part of why we've blended the innovation and the business general. So we've tried to take that into account.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Tola. Mr. Covino, please.
Sure, thank you. One of the reasons that we're, as Joe says, really, really a desirable community and the envy of a lot of towns around us is because 20 years ago, we planned it that way. The developers came to us and they said, every time we bring people in here from out of town, like the Intel and the other high-tech companies, we have to take them out of town to go to dinner. That's ridiculous. So we need more restaurants. Nordblue came and said, you know, we'd like to put some restaurants in and other things here. We want to do a PDD. 20 years ago. That's why we're where we are right now. This is a difficult one for me to vote on. I'm bouncing back and forth between yes and no. I think I know what's going to happen. Same thing that happened in the town center or something similar. nobody's building commercial, nobody's building retail, nobody's building office. So what's going to be built here? Residential is going to be built right away, or maybe not right away, but within 5 years, within 10 years, you'll see 750 units of residential. Believe it or not, that's a good thing for traffic. If you look at the 300 units that we just put in at Corporate Drive, a lot of people say, what? There's a multifamily building over there right off of Cambridge Street? I didn't even know it was there. So that's 300 units. The professional planners and the developers are saying that we need some residential to support or keep supporting what we have here and what we're going to build. I see the commercial, industrial, retail assessed values going down as I see the residential values going up. So that 60-40 split that we've had is going to tend to lean towards residential. Definitely, our residential rates are going up anyways because we're doing some capital spending. I want to make sure that the assessed commercial industrial values don't go down any more than they have to. And if it takes some additional residential to keep that from happening, because that's what I'm being told by the professional planning people, I think that I would be voting yes on this. I do have one question for Melissa, if I can. And that is 40% residential, I assume came from some kind of a negotiation with the developers that are in this general area. Would you go with less than that, like we did at, I'm thinking back, Northwest Park, originally when we did that planned development district in our negotiations to get to where we eventually got to. They wanted originally 600 units, and we told them, or they agreed to settle for 300 units, and then when those filled up and it looked like they needed more, to come back and talk to us about some additional ones. Would 30% instead of 40%? Because I think the big bugaboo on this is residential units right now that people that I've heard from are concerned about. So, Melissa, but the question is, does 30% work?
Well, the 40% came through some analysis of some previous communities' efforts to encourage where they had no commercial. In particular, I think one example was looking at Somerville. In one district, they were trying to require 75% commercial and 25% residential, and then nothing got built. So they went back and then modified that. We talked to some of the developers, and most of the developers say, a majority, the majority being anywhere from 50 to 70 commercial, and then 1/3 in that 1/3 zone of residential has been the sweet spot. So those are numbers mainly from folks part of ULI, which is the Urban Land Institute, that would kind of give those rough figures that kind of constitute a mixed use area, and that works. For us, we landed on 60-40, and the idea is that we have a substantial, amount of retail and existing commercial. What we're lacking is more people to walk in and spend money in these areas to help create the vibrancy in the area. So yes, Ernie, I think that's been a concern about the housing, but this is housing very kind of surgically and done with best practices of where it should be located, with the analysis from the fiscal impact studies. And it's not being asked of through the MBTA. It's not being asked of the state. We're not looking for, any subsidy for this. We are thinking that this is the long-term benefit to incorporate some housing here that also meets some community goals around creating some new options for people and kind of regional and state initiatives to keep the talent here in Massachusetts. So it's that 40% and the concern about introducing residential, I understand that, but that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to bring in residential. We are trying to bring in people. We are trying to create a vibrant area, and we do want to make a place that is attractive over time. And I think to Joe's point, yes, we did this 20 years ago for the PDD, and it's still not completed as planned. What we're doing today will take a very long time, and that's that 30 to 50-year process. Everyone says good planning takes 20 years to realize. So that's kind of, we are on the precipice of trying to kind of steer the ship into this mixed-use village that we have. And part of that is inviting and creating an inclusive and welcoming place to live. That livability is, very much essential to this zoning.
Okay, so, can I?
Yep.
Maybe walk me through something. I'm pretty sure, and I think you would probably agree that housing is going to get built first. So there's already 60% of commercial on this lot, whatever this lot is, and now somebody's going to build it 40% housing. Do they have to build out the green space and open space and amenities that are mentioned in your zoning change?
Yes.
And if so, maybe let's get a little specific. I would guess one of the areas that might be built out first would be the Macy's site. So tell me what that would look like, if you can. Not really in depth, but do you know where I'm coming from?
I do understand where you're coming from.
I know it's a difficult thing to.
So we would, I would, encourage us to look at the Article 14, which is the new bylaw, and then we would look at what type of building they would be allowed to build. And if we're looking at residential, it'd either be a mixed use with the retail on the bottom, and that depends on where they would position that building. Or it could be a multifamily. In either case, that's about 70 feet tall. They would be required to find 20% open space. They have a list of different open space and green space alternatives that you can pick from a park to a linear park. And on the regulating plan, we have specifically outlined that the Vine Brook, if we go to the map, I'm looking at the map. You want to pull the map up or no? So on the map, there's a green line. That would be part of the greenway that would be enhanced. For any amount of housing that is beyond 15 units per acre, which would likely be a project that would be substantial, it would have to come to the planning board with a public benefit. And with that, we had said explicitly, any density bonus provided, planning board has to negotiate, and it's this board that will help influence what that green and open space and other public benefit looks like. You could push them more so in the affordable housing. The open space by the basic level will be 20%. That's the basis. What I would expect with the bonus would be an added public benefit, and that's negotiated. We did not put a specific square footage amount or anything like that. And then the public realm and pedestrian connectivity, their design would have to follow the guidelines and standards we had put forward in the zoning. So, which requires trees, it requires setbacks, it requires fenestration on the street level. That first 16 feet, that's the L16 that they call it, the first 16 that you see visually up, first 16 visually out. The human scale experience is what we have really tried to make sure that is in detail in the zoning. So yes, they would have to accommodate all of that.
Nothing further at this time, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Covino. Ms. Rappaport?
I just want to thank everybody for the time and effort that they put forth. I'm just going to note a couple buzzwords. Somerville, Seaport, Boston, urban land, all things I don't want in Burlington. And I got to be honest with you, I think, you put forth a graph of 2005 to 2024 land values. I mean, I bought my house, 7, 8 years ago, and my house has doubled in value. I think that, all land has appreciated and all property has appreciated in Burlington. I'm really concerned that this is going to change the character of the community, and I have to say it's probably going to be a no for me. But thank you.
Okay. Ms. LaRue?
Thank you. So I've really struggled with this, as I think you know. And so I wrote down my comments so that I would get it right. I agree with our Economic Development Director that we need to make changes in the Mall Road area in order to remain vibrant and competitive. Unfortunately, I'm not convinced that this is the solution that's best for Burlington. Although my reasons are known to the proponent and to our staff, I want to share them here for the public. Number one, I know that there's a need for more housing nationwide, at the state level, and within our own town. However, through our master plan process, through our housing need assessment, and our own multiple public forums, we have learned from residents that large-scale apartment buildings are not what they want. And that's not what we need to fix our broken housing cycle. Burlington's housing stock is approximately 1/3 large-scale apartment buildings. We have plenty of that type of housing. We also have plenty of single-family homes. What we're missing is the middle piece, small-scale multifamily houses, condos, townhouses, 2 or 3 family homes. But this proposal will potentially create 750 units of housing, but it's not the type of housing that we as a town have identified that we need. It's the housing that we already have. Number two, it is my belief that this proposal, if fully implemented, will, as Brenda said, fundamentally change the character of our town from what it's always been. It's always been a suburban town, and this is going to change it to something much more urban. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. There are lovely urban communities, but that's not what Burlington has been up until now. And I don't think we want to change the character of the town out of a fear that we might be missing out on future development. I really believe that there are other ways we can make the Mall Road area vibrant and competitive that will not fundamentally change us into a city. It's my opinion that the scale of the proposed buildings, as well as the design standards, are more in line with some place like Cambridge than with Burlington. Thirdly, I have concerns regarding mitigation of traffic and other impacts. With the Third Avenue development, which was part of your case study, it's a great case study, but that's very different than this because there was one property owner. So that made the challenge of impact mitigation a lot easier because there was only one responsible party. This area has many property owners, and the development will occur over many years. So each individual property owner can only be held responsible for mitigating the impacts of their development. And the mitigation will happen in a piecemeal fashion over many years. It will not happen up front. One of the reasons the Third Ave development worked is because the mitigation was done before the businesses and the houses came online. That won't happen in this case because it's going to occur in smaller pieces as each property is developed. And I think we're all familiar with the concept that sometimes the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And I believe that might be the case here. And if so, we could end up with traffic and other impacts that aren't manageable. So while I really greatly appreciate the enormous effort that has gone into this proposal, I'm sorry that I can't support it. I understand that this is town meeting's decision, and I will respect whatever town meeting decides, but I can't recommend in favor of it for these reasons. I do want to thank Melissa and our own staff for all the work they've done in this proposal. It's been an enormous undertaking, and I think we've actually learned a lot through this process. If town meeting approves the proposal, I know that the planning board and our staff will work really hard to see that it is implemented in the manner that is best for Burlington. If town meeting doesn't approve the proposal, I do believe that there are other ways we can collaborate to enhance the viability of this area of town in Burlington. And I would look forward to working with you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. LaRue. Yeah, I think it's excellent that we've got multiple views on this particular item. I think it's complex. I agree, and, you know, knowing the millennials that I do, they are leaving Massachusetts, and the ones that are here, they want to go to places like you've mentioned, the Somervilles of the world, the Seaports of the world, because they have multiple amenities, you know, to where they're working. I, as Mr. Impemba said, have been, you know, my particular campaigns have been on traffic as well when I first came in. Very difficult to do. We had Northeastern come into play where I opposed that until the traffic mitigation was done. And I think now, 5 or 6 years later, I think they've actually been approved, but it hasn't actually happened. So that corner of, you know, 3A and South Bedford Street still is not safe and difficult in any particular time of day. So I understand the concern there. The scale is very large, as I mentioned before, and I agree. This is up to town meeting. You know, I'm gonna listen to the input of other folks here from the public, but a very complex and difficult decision on this one. So we'll open it up to the public. We have here on site, Mr. Espejo, I see you here, if you want to make any comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Espejo, Select Board. Thank you for letting me speak on this tonight, and I appreciate all of your input and deliberation, and I've watched the meetings. I know this is a tough one. It's a definite big change and something different than anything we've ever kind of embarked on. And I'm in full support of the plan. And the reason why is because I'm very concerned about the future. Our office vacancy rate is the highest it's ever been, and it's only going up. It's a whole new world out there as far as working from home, working remote, and office space, you know, filling office space. I look at my own company as an example. We've just had our office building sit empty for 3 years, and we didn't renew the lease, and now we're all working remote. That's great for someone on a snowy, icy morning, but it's not good for, you know, the town, the tax revenue that we've grown to accept and need from those type of office filling those offices. This is a long-term plan and a vision for the future. And Melissa has been working on this with her staff since I've been on the Select Board. I remember, I mean, this has been a 2-year process with many Zoom meetings, experts, community forums, neighborhood forums, and the amount of work and different specialists and experts we've had looking at this to put this together has been amazing to watch. And I think that we really have to take a good, hard look at staying, you know, on the edge, cutting edge of where towns and municipalities are. I mean, we have 2 huge projects we just approved, and hopefully a new high school, which I'd really like to see. And I think this type of proposal keeps us on the cutting edge and moving towards the future and keeps us economically viable. And whenever we look at the tax rate, the tax levy, one thing Paul always says to us is that new growth factor. It always helps us in keeping that buffer that we need to charge the tax rate that we have, and keeping Burlington moving forward and keeping that new growth going is exactly what this plan does. It's not going to happen in 10 years. It's not going to happen in 15. This is a 30-year vision for the future, and that's what I really like about it. And it would move Burlington into the future. So that's all I really want to say, and I thank you for the time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Espejo. Anyone else here in the public want to speak or against it? We'll take one. Yep. Want to give this person the microphone, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry Ellis. I'm speaking as a resident and perhaps, I guess, a town meeting member as well.
Okay.
I have nothing on the zoning language from the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee, so I really just wanted to speak in support of this. A lot of what Select Board Member Espejo said, I won't repeat. I agree with a lot of what he said. What I do want to speak to is Melissa's knowledge, expertise, her vision is really forward-thinking. And I've always been in support of forward-thinking and trying to get more people on board with that. The state has kind of been pushing things on us because we're not forward-thinking. There's a need for the housing. And I'm just going to throw out numbers. MBTA, we were supposed to develop 140 available units for that. And what we created with our zoning was about 150. So we're way short of what is trying to be built in Burlington that we need. And it's wonderful for all of us town meeting members and residents to say we want to keep it a single family because we have our single families. There's so many people who would like to become or come into Burlington that they can't. And whether it's large-scale multifamily or the middle housing, which I don't see any proposals for middle housing, as far as townhomes, 2 families, 3 families, that's the middle housing that I think we were talking about, but we don't have any proposals for those. And so I feel like even with, what was it, 750, which is not a large number, that's kind of what's over in 3rd Avenue, I don't see that as a detriment to Burlington as a whole. It doesn't, to me, my opinion, I guess, it doesn't change the character of Burlington. It's kind of there already on that side of town, which is my side of town. So we still have that large contingent of single family on, not in that area. So I just really wanted to speak to that and say, yes, the housing will come, but with that, people will be here, and it will create a lot of other good things for Burlington. So I just really wanted to speak in support of this, and that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis.
Question?
Mr. Impemba.
Just a question for Melissa. Melissa, of the 1.2 million square feet in full build-out, how much of that is residential?
I have to go back to my numbers. One moment, I think I have it here. So the analysis was 1.2 million
Additional square feet
additional,
from what's there now,
right.
right?
So
And
then
how
I
much?
think what we have is 750,000.
Is the amount of units. What's the square footage of the residential
So what they did was
as
take,
compared to the 1.2 million of additional square?
Right.
So of the 1.2 million that can be built out, how much of that is residential, so we know how much of that's going to be commercial?
okay, so the assumption was that 750 units times about 1,000 square feet. So it's 750,000
750,000 square
Thank
feet
you.
of residential.
Thank you, 750,000
Square feet of
residential,
Right.
leaving about 310 for kind of office lab, possibly a little bit more, like 30,000 for retail, probably on the lower levels of buildings, and then an estimate of about one hotel, about 100 and 150,000 square feet.
So that's the breakdown.
Yep, thank you. Okay. Looks like we have someone online.
Yeah,
that
I'm
they
going to
would
send a request to meet to Nick Priest. Should show up on your screen.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Mr. Priest.
So I just want to come on and
Just
speak.
for the record, introduce yourself to the audience there.
Of course. Yes, Nick Priest, Select Board member, also resident of the community. So, a lot's been said tonight, and I'll do my best not to rehash everything. Obviously, I do speak in support of this, and I know that, several members have already expressed, their lack of support, which is absolutely within your right, of course. I strongly encourage everybody to, if you're not in support of this, to start thinking now about what you would be in support of. What's happening right now is not going away, and the signaling that Oracle has just put out this week is a huge signal to other businesses in the community to downsize. Over 400,000 square feet that they invested in, they are now going to essentially walk away from. And I know that I'm being overgeneralistic there. But the makeup of the community is shifting because the people who would be looking to come here are different. right? We have, younger millennials and Gen Z kids who aren't having kids of their own. They don't drive cars. In fact, we hear from businesses quite often who are considering to come here. They say, yeah, you have the amenities, but you're not walkable. It's not easy to get to. These people don't have cars. They rely on public transportation. I don't want us to obviously become a Somerville or a Cambridge. That's not what we're after here. What we are looking to do is stay ahead of the curve, and I think that we're starting to quickly fall behind on that. When we look at the decisions that have been made in the past, given the Mall Road area, I think this is a natural next progression. If we don't embrace this inflection point, we're going to be left with a bunch of empty office space. There's only so much life science and bio manufacturing that can come out of the Boston area that are going to come here, right? Other towns will quickly figure out how to incentivize and pull them in their direction. Businesses will want to stake claim to an area on the Route 3 corridor. They won't want to come here, and we'll be right back to where we were 20 years ago when businesses were leaving and they were in other communities were taking them to say that use Burlington's amenities, but come over here and have your office space there. So in part, the future of the community is in additional residents, in people who are going to be here, who are going to become our new daytime population, right? We went from 125-ish, give or take, 100,000 people in a given day, right? So it's not like we don't have the infrastructure to support, a larger daytime population. But we're never going to bring residents up to that number. We're talking about 1,100 people. I think that if we don't act soon, relatively speaking, we are going to be shifting the tax burden onto the residents that are here. And to Selectman Espejo's point, if we continue to do that and continue to start, these larger projects, we're only putting ourselves in a bad position. Melissa was very kind in saying there's only 19.7% vacancy in terms of true actualized vacancy. That's just commercial. Industrial space, an additional 5%. So that's 24.5%, that we're looking at in terms of overall vacancy. And now Oracle is heading out. I would guarantee Microsoft and Salesforce and other larger companies are going to be on their heels, because sitting on these large spaces is not doing anybody any good.
Okay,
So-
thank you, Mr. Priest. Unless you have something,
I would just encourage this board to, use its authority to ensure that, there is that cohesiveness going forward, whether it's in this plan or another, and that we really do work together to ensure the success of the future of this town. Because if we do not, we will be left in a 21st, century Milltown with a whole bunch of empty office parks and a whole bunch of residents paying money that they can't afford in taxes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Space since he's here. Has the select board voted on this?
Not a formal vote, but everyone did express support at the last
Will
meeting.
you be voting on it?
Yes, we will.
Okay. At a future meeting?
Yeah.
Next weeks or
Yeah,
before the first of the year?
probably our next meeting on the 16th.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so seeing no further hands,
I don't see any other hands online, no.
may I have a motion?
Motion to close the public meeting on this matter.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 700 to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion to recommend favorably on the petition to amend Article 3 districts, Article 4 use regulations, and Article 10 miscellaneous and special regulations of the zoning bylaws with the creation of a new mixed-use innovation, MIX district, submitted by the Economic Development Office.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
3, all those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. 4, 3-4-0. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time on this.
I
Appreciate
do
it.
want to say one thing. I think you've worked very hard on this, and I'd be willing to even work with you. More what you had spoke about, that type of housing, I think is more what's needed for Burlington, because I think you've done a lot of work, and I just want to put that on the record.
So again, this is non-binding vote. This is just a recommendation vote to town meeting. Town meeting's got the ultimate decision on that, so any
Yeah, which I think
any
is a great
comments?
idea.
Yep,
'cause
then
it's
go
your time.
talk to your town meeting members, and
Thank
we'll
you.
see what happens in January. Thank you. Okay, we got 7C. It's a public hearing amendment to Article 3, Districts of Zoning Bylaw to adopt a new Town of Burlington signage district zoning map and create a new set of signage regulations for the Town Center Overlay District of the zoning bylaws, submitted by the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. Hello.
Thank you. My name is Betsy Hughes. I'm a town meeting member, Precinct 7. I'm also on the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee and the Signage Subcommittee of the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee.
Oh, Shari Ellis, Chair of the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee and also a member of the Signage Subcommittee.
I was here at the meeting on the 21st of November, where I don't know if you want me to run through those slides again or how you want me to do this. I'm seeing no.
If you could go over.
I thought it was a pretty good presentation, actually.
Presentations are great. It's
It was a great presentation. Let's go over what was
No, that's fine.
changed.
Okay, that works for me.
Thank
I just wanted to offer it up in case. So since we last met, we've been really busy. We got feedback from you all, and we also got feedback from, we went to the Select Board, got some feedback from them, and they, I guess they didn't really vote on it, but they did a motion to support it. They did that with everybody voting in favor. We went to the ZBA for the initial discussion on last Monday and got some feedback there. We've been working with property owners and businesses and our consultant, Util. And what we have now is some suggested modifications to the original bylaw that we presented that is a compilation of all of those things, which fall into, as I look at it, probably 3 categories. One is kind of errors or omissions. There's typos or that sort of thing, or a phrase that was included that shouldn't have been. We eliminated redundancies wherever we could. We put in clarifications wherever we could with some of the points that were made in the original bylaw that were confusing, and it was a pretty easy change, just to change the wording around so it was clearer. I don't know if you want to run through all of them. I know that you have most of them. There were a few since you last got the last copy of it, which are all in those categories. The bigger ones that I would point out is you had requested that we make it more meaningful if somebody doesn't comply, which in the last version we had done, and we were advised by town council that we couldn't do it, so we have now reverted to the language that we had before, which is in the current zoning bylaw, what the penalties are for noncompliance, which is if it's unadjudicated or if there's no law involved, it's $300, and if it is not that, then it's $50 a day or per occurrence. So it does not have the teeth that I think that we had hoped we could have. We also added something in here, a special permit, which is that the special permit section, which is added to address the issue where there are some businesses where the main business sign just can't fit because of architectural detail. So we put it in with the advice of Util as a special permit process into the bylaw, and it would come to you as the planning board should that occurrence occur, and that if it does, that it should be in keeping with the intent of what is happening down at the town center. So that was another one that we put in. And other than those, I think those are the larger issues where there was actually a change that was not something we had discussed before. We had discussed window signs. If it's 2 feet, then it's considered a window sign. If it's 5 feet and illuminated. So I think we made all the adjustments that you had suggested the last time as well. And another area of clarification is in the guidelines, we had pictures of, for example, monument signs. and they have a picture of a monument sign, as I think most people think of them, with a big structure, cement base, as well as a wooden structure with a number of different businesses on them, which can be very attractive, and they work just as well as the other kinds of monument signs. So we clarified that those are both considered monument signs, and the difference is that you have to have over a certain number of tenants in order to have one of those. So that was another area of clarification. So that's it.
Great, thank you very much, and thank you for all your hard work on that. I think it's appreciated by the board here as well as it should be by the residents of the towns. And, you know, just as we've gone over time, as you've seen with the town center, and the downlighting, the gooseneck lighting that we've recommended to applicants that they've actually done, it's been such a big game changer. So now that we codified that, I think you'll see that over time, that really changed the perception of the downtown from a positive way for the businesses as well as the residents. I'm going to go to staff first. Any comments, staff?
No comments. Really glad with the work and everything that's been done on this. Really
Okay, I'll start over to my right, Ms. LaRue, and I'll come back around this way.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any comments on this. I think you did a great job. I'm really happy, and I expect that it will pass town meeting very easily. One thing that should not come in here, I do think we need to talk offline about ways we can incent businesses to change their signs to be compliant with this, probably through waiving fees or whatever, but I think that's an important part because we want to encourage people to move on this as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rapport.
No, I just want to thank you for your time and efforts. Everything looks great to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Covino.
Well said, just thank you.
Ms. Natola.
Thank you for your time and effort. You've done a great job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Impemba.
Same. Thank you so much for your hard work. It was-
Vice Chair
We
Sutherland.
know what kind of
sorry.
a feat that was to get that done. So
Oh, yeah. Herculean. Vice Chairman Sutherland, please.
All set, all done.
Okay, I have no further comments. Again, as Mr. Impemba has, we've been on a number of these unsuccessfully, and we know how hard it is to get this thing done, so we appreciate it. May I have a motion, please?
Public meeting.
Oh, public meeting. Anyone out here speak in favor, against? None here, any online?
I don't see any hands online.
Thank you. May I have
Motion to
it?
close the public meeting on this matter.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 700. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Motion.
Hold on.
Motion to recommend
sorry.
favorably on the petition to amend Article 3 districts of the zoning bylaws to adopt a new Town of Burlington signage district zoning map and create a new set of signage regulations for the Town Center Overlay District of the zoning bylaws submitted by the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 700. Now, thank you.
Now I can say thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Like the efficiency we're seeing here. 7D, it's a public hearing, amendment to Article 3 districts, Article 4 use regulations, and Article 13 overlay districts of the zoning bylaws, the creation of a mixed-use middle housing overlay district submitted by the planning board. Staff,
Yes, so.
Middle housing.
So, on middle housing, again, similar to what we just saw, this is just kind of updates based upon our last discussion. And you'll see it in your staff report, things that were changed. So I added a 10-foot front yard setback. Reason being, I know that there's a lot of talk about the urgent care in the town center and how it is right up against the sidewalk, which, you know, is what we want, but most of the sidewalk space in the town it's not 10 feet, it's
Yeah.
5. And so, you know, a 10-foot setback allows for more public space, more amenity space, and then, so there's a front yard setback of 10 feet, and then there's a minimum of 75% of front facades are to be located along the setback line so that you're not, you know, walking against, you know, grass and then a building. It's kind of, you know, it's more walkable and more comfortable for pedestrians that way. And so you can actually increase the maximum step line. You can increase it by, you know, 5 feet to, if you're gonna add amenity space in front. So, again, all back to walkability. And then the next one, oh, I'm not even sharing, you guys, I'm so sorry. I even highlighted it so that you could see.
It's highlighted, and
I-
it's so.
I know, but.
Keep on going, you're doing great.
So, here we go. So, there we go. It's gonna show up on the screen so you guys can see it. Okay, so that the people at home can see it. And then next, we talked about parking and site designs with parking. So, we wanted to clarify on-site parking should not face commercial streets or be located between buildings and pedestrian ways. On-site parking should be located under or behind buildings or to the side. Parallel on-street parking is encouraged, whether that parallel parking be in the town right-of-way or be partially in the private property. So that was added in there as well. And that's all I have for my update.
Okay, thank you. Let me start to my left, Vice Chairman Sutherland, please.
Have there been additions for community benefits?
There have not been additions for community benefits, but it is something that would be negotiated as part of the development process that would be in here. And I believe that, setting up some type of fund for, placemaking and programming would be, I think, a benefit to this area. We've had some really great beer gardens. I did reach out to town council on that. I have not heard back from her. And so I think it might be something that we can definitely add at a later date to kind of solidify that. I don't anticipate that between now and September, all of these buildings are going to be torn down. But because these would be tear down buildings. If you're choosing this overlay, you're choosing to tear down and rebuild new. So that is all I have on that.
But if someone submits an application but doesn't tear down, we can't then force them into community benefit.
So all of the buildings in this overlay that are currently on the parcels in this overlay could not be retrofit to adhere to this.
Right, but if an application got submitted in the next three months without community benefit being a piece of this.
Yes, then it would be part of the negotiation process that would happen as coming to this board. That's what would happen. And, we would say, we have this fund, so that would be the,
I think just knowing how difficult it's been as of late with developers, even all the things we had to go through with Leahy, where even as a negotiation, it was difficult. And even when super excited about the Kent Cottage stuff, but even when we asked them to up what they would contribute, they wouldn't because the financials. I am not comfortable unless it's in here. I would really like to see that in here, especially as we just discussed. Residential pieces are going to be built quickly. And I think given that this isn't necessarily the true middle housing that we originally envisioned, but also understand we need to account for maintaining commercial, which is super important. I just would like to see much more community benefits, particularly in the town center area. I just, for me, that would have to be a part of this to be comfortable
Thank you.
voting on it.
Okay, Mr. Impemba.
So Liz, do we, along those lines, we have, if they're on-site improvements, we can pretty much mandate some of the stuff if that, right? We can mandate on-site improvements. If we need parking, if there's things that, if we're talking about a parking space, like an in-common space that we wanted to maybe as a town purchase or whatever.
Yes.
to require them
All
to
that's-
contribute these things to, or green space, creating a green down there or something that's going to enhance this
Yep,
area.
As long as it's within the nexus of the project, yep.
As long as it's within the next, so in other words, so in creating this aspect to the middle housing, what does that do for us if we want the enhancements to be, in this general area anyway?
So.
It just lets them know ahead of time, you're going to have to do this, or
So are you asking why, are you asking why we would need to have the public benefit written down in here in the first place? Is that what you're asking me?
That's right, because if we can mandate certain things, improvements to the general area, that's being enhanced or being built on, do we actually need that in there to have any teeth with it, in other words?
I don't think so. I think that I think having the community benefit is a cleaner process, absolutely, and having I agree with you, and having a kind of, we have an account, and this is the account for the town center, placemaking, and,
But we can do that.
we can do that. We can do that as part of the negotiation process as well.
Right, so we don't have to have an account set up by virtue of this,
Correct.
the
At a
zoning
later,
change.
right, but at a later date, if we want, at a later date, we could absolutely solidify a percentage and say, if you're gonna, we would, this is the,
And that requires board members to be in support of mandating it, if it's not in here. Versus if it's in here, that is a signal to anybody on the board at that time that somebody comes through in this overlay, that this has to be a part of it.
Well, that also means we've got to decide exactly what if we're going to mandate that it goes towards this, we have to decide
Yes.
exactly what it is we're going to go towards. So whether it's, is
Correct.
it going to be green space, is it going to be creation of parking in the downtown, is it going to be, whatever, so.
Which is something I've discussed the last 2 meetings.
yeah. So, the other kind of technical side of this is, that the process for putting forward zoning amendments is that substantial changes cannot occur after the warrant articles are advertised for a public hearing in the newspaper. So I am concerned that if we were to change the language in here, and even the last 2 meetings, the concern is if we change the language in here, town council would highly likely punt it back and say this is outside of the scope of what was advertised initially. And so that is also my concern as to why adding it now or adding it 2 weeks ago would have been difficult.
Did we ask that a month ago?
It's been the practice that I've been hearing from her since I've been the director, is that any substantial changes cannot be made after it's advertised.
But I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
that makes the public hearing process kind of neutered.
Yeah.
Because that's, if you have to,
that's-
before you even discuss it, you have to know what it is you're going to end up at? That doesn't make sense.
Well, that's why I think we talked about the process, backing it into it a little bit.
That's why we do the discussion. That's why we do
Yeah.
discussions ahead of time.
Yeah. And not all of them get
I
discussed.
hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
I think that was proposed by our council
So
when she
is
was here
that
in
what you were
person.
waiting to hear back on town council on? Okay, thank you, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
No, it's fine.
Okay, which way was I going here?
This way.
I going, okay, thank you.
I'm all set.
You're all set?
I've heard it.
All right.
She's heard enough.
She's heard enough. Okay, we'll go over to Mr. Covino.
I'm wondering if, Liz, do you think it would be a major modification to just add something that said the planning board and the property owner developer shall negotiate either on-site or off-site community benefits? just a statement that says that, so that they know that they're going to be obligated to
I can see,
talk about it? I mean, that's so nebulous that it might,
I
Might
am
just
not
be-
opposed.
in other words, what I want to make sure is that we don't blindside the developer.
Right.
And then he
Right.
comes in and we start negotiating and he says, I didn't know I
Well,
was
because
supposed
you
to
don't
do
want to
this.
scare them away either.
And I think,
Future, we can.
In the future, we can obviously
I think we're going to be okay, because we've had
I like
many,
the
many
idea
things
of the
before us that have changed substantially
Yeah.
after it gets to town meeting. And was I standing in front of town meeting, and I'm telling them why we oppose something, and they said, well, that changed. And I'm like, oh, nobody told me it changed between the time that we actually voted on it. And it was substantial in a number of cases, so I think we might be okay here.
I like Ernie's suggestion.
I agree.
Okay? Thank you.
So what are we
I
adding
think I'll
in
put
here?
it on my head. Go ahead.
Good. So Liz, if you can kind of come back, what were you thinking with regard to language?
Ernie, can you repeat what you
I was saying that the developer slash landowner, or however you put that.
The applicants?
Applicant, thank you.
Property owner.
Shall negotiate community benefits, both, or either on-site or off-site, or both on-site or off-site, or however you, I don't know how you'd word that.
They're on-site, off-site, or both.
Oh, getting
We,
typed up here.
we can't say development will require community benefit, which will be negotiated between applicant and planning board.
I like that.
I would like to
Even
say, I
better,
would like to
that's-
say community benefit will
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
required.
That's good.
Shall is, yes, shall is the word, right?
Oh, there we go, sorry.
Yeah.
Shall. Guys, I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
no worries.
It's
Under pressure here.
shall require community benefit.
To be negotiated with the planning board.
Community benefit contribution, community benefit,
We could just leave it at
do we just leave it as community
Leave
benefit?
it vague, that way council can't come at us.
Yeah, not only that, we can do a lot more if we don't spell out exactly what we're going to do.
I'm gonna save
Okay,
as,
save, yeah, thank you.
I'm final.
Do you have anything else, Ernie?
No.
I agree as revised. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. LaRue?
I agree also. Can we ask staff to put on our the first February meeting, put this back on our agenda, assuming that it passes town meeting, so we can get more specific about that community benefit?
Do we want to be specific, though? Because if we say we're going to negotiate, what if we want something else later? I mean, do we want to get granular and, back ourselves into a corner to negotiate? We don't need to tell them what we want right out of the gate.
They should tell them we want something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
that's
we're
like
going to
it's
negotiate, but to
We
throw
don't know what
cards.
yet.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, let's talk about it in February,
Talk about
so it doesn't slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
That's
All right, I think that's
Thank you.
fair.
And thank you, staff, because I know you put this together. It was a lot of work, and I know I've been harassing you about it, and I really appreciate it.
I don't even like.
Okay, thank you, and I would add our thanks to Ms. LaRue here, Member LaRue, because she's been really pushing this one, which, again, was as a result of the MBTA communities where a number of town meeting members said that that didn't do enough from an additional housing standpoint, and it wasn't, like you said, that the town is against the large multifamily units, but this is the in-between the middle housing, and hopefully will satisfy what the town meeting was looking for actual added housing to get the people downtown, to keep that area of town vibrant, which is what we're all looking for. Okay, so that is the case. Let's go to public.
One more question.
Yep.
Would we handle any traffic studies on an individual basis around this?
That's how
Is-
projects are
is
handled.
typically,
Yes,
yeah,
that's what we
typically
do.
done, yep.
That's what we do.
Traffic, landscaping, you know.
I think you want to put something in there about, because it's very ambiguous, community benefit to be negotiated with planning board. In other words, it should be a benefit that's coming from the developer or from the applicant. You need to have
Funded
something in
by
there.
the
Yeah.
developer.
Developer-funded community benefit. Development shall require
Community benefit.
To be funded by the applicant.
Yeah.
to be funded by the applicant and
be funded-
To be contributed, yeah, it can be contributed, whether it be funded or contributed somehow. They don't necessarily have to fund it. They
Could
could.
be land.
They could give
It could
land.
be
They
Yeah.
could be
yeah.
contributed. That's why I originally said contributed, and you didn't
Okay,
like the
yeah.
language. But I think contributed
To be
is really,
contributed by the applicant and negotiated with.
Okay. The other thing.
for
the other thing
enhance,
I'm
for
thinking-
enhancement, yeah, just,
Yeah.
just require community benefit to it, contributed by the applicant to the enhancement of, whether it was,
I think
Ernie
commu-
said,
I think-
on-site,
yeah,
off-site,
I think
you know,
community
both
benefits is
on-site and
okay,
off-site.
Yep. Leave
And I
that
think
vague.
if you want to put on-site and off-site, if you,
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means.
well, that's what he had originally said in
Yeah,
the
I understand.
language, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the only other thing I was thinking, when you put in the 10 feet from the minimum setback, so that basically precludes front parking coming in, right? Because that's usually a 12-footer. So if you
So
have
that's a,
minimum front
mi-
yard.
the minimum is 10 feet.
We don't want it in.
Right, we don't want head in, so.
It should be from the
So
property.
it says, yeah.
Yeah, or it should be curb, well, should it be?
Me too.
But anyway, you talk about parking in the back and you talk about parking on the side, so that's fine. That's the only comment I had there. Okay, public hearing. Anyone out there want to speak in favor or against, or any other comments? Language or words or sentence structure
Want to email me, Sherry, all of these?
is welcome.
Surprise. Sherry Ellis, Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. So I had a couple of comments. I think I just downloaded the newest version.
Yep.
So I had a couple of things that I didn't think got caught.
Perfect.
So I just wanted to bring those to attention. In 8.5.2, the district boundaries, and if you want to pull this up on the screen to make sure I did the latest, or maybe you changed things afterwards. That first sentence says it's incorporated as 3 districts, but the language there says 2 districts.
Yeah.
So that should be included and struck through, because you changed it.
So hold on, could you email?
8.5.2, I think.
8.5.2, district boundaries.
It says, but I think it then becomes the Civic Center, Central Business District, and
Right,
then the Middle
but it-
Housing District.
Right,
Oh, but if
but
the
the
district-
original language said 2. So you have to put the
have to
original
strike.
language in there and
I
strike
have
through.
to show, yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
You have to put the strike through in.
Yes,
Okay.
we need to. Okay,
What else you got, Miss?
So in the same thing, the original language was taken out in a couple of other things too, is 8.5.4.2, Middle Housing MH District.
Hang on a second.
Was it 4.2?
yep,
8.5.4.2
Yeah.
used to be called the Housing Production and Residential Uses in the Town Center.
Okay.
So you changed the title of it, but you didn't cross out the old one.
is it, on the last page, I have stuff crossed out. Is that crossed out on the last page of this? Because I did cross out what was originally in there.
Right, that's another question for
Okay,
another
never mind.
time. Nope, this is 8.5.4.2, where it says Middle Housing MH District.
What am I calling it?
That's what you're calling it, but the original language that section was housing production and residential uses in the town center, and that has to be struck out.
Yep.
Uses in the town center.
Okay.
Okay. And then the one right below that, applicability, I can't say that word. Used to say, maximum residential component, no additional multifamily dwelling shall be permitted beyond those units already, and it's in there, so if you don't want to type it in there tonight or something. Those were the 2 that I caught. Yeah, you can look in the
Yep, I
the
can,
current
I will,
bylaw.
I
Okay.
will, yep.
So, and those were the 2 that were omitted that should be put in there. My question is, the one you were talking about at the very end, the 8.5.4.2.1, this section deleted in its entirety. Do you have the, you have the authority to take that out? I mean, I thought that was like an Attorney General thing, they put that in there. At the very end, 8.5.4.2.1,
At the end of your document.
very end, before your map. That, yep, oop, go right there. I mean, that's in the zoning bylaws as struck out like that. That's going to remain though, correct?
Yes,
Okay, because I think
but
that,
do we need to have that in
well,
there?
that's a question I have for town council, like, does that need to stay in there? It's always been in there as struck out like that. So does it need to stay?
Weird.
I don't know. I don't have an answer to that, but it was my question to you guys.
Oh, you, from like a documentation standpoint?
Yeah, I
think
don't
it was-
know if from the
I think-
AGO or something that needs to stay in.
No, I don't think so. I think it was left in there as a clarification for, you know,
Otherwise, where is this section?
yeah. I think, I can double check with that, but
Yeah,
I
I just
haven't-
double,
know
I don't know if it
I-
needs to be removed or stay, I don't know. Anyway, that's the only,
I get it.
so my last thing is, and we talked about this last time, is that, so your legal notice and your section, you know, what you're amending here in the bylaws is Article 8.5 Town Center Overlay. And in here, you're referencing Section 8.5.5 Town Center, but you haven't included that, the Town Center Overlay Districts, what that section is, the dimensional requirements. But you haven't included it in your material. So you're including all of Section 8.5 except that one. So I think that should be included as part of your amendment.
Okay.
Because you're amending that entire section, so
Yep.
that section should be included.
Yes, I agree. I understand.
So,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
Okay, so if
And
that's
not,
the
and
case.
not edited, just included.
Not edited, it's
Yeah.
just as it is, just
Yep.
similar to the
But
section,
needs to be, yep.
you know, section 8.4.5.1. You're not amending that at all, but it's included.
Yep. You got that? What she's trying to-
I would like to talk about it off, like, I wish this had been,
So it's just if you include.
I mean, my question is, so are you saying that the legal notice is wrong? 'Cause
No,
if
no,
the
no.
legal-
No.
Okay,
The legal notice says you're amending all of section 8.5,
okay,
but you didn't include the last paragraph, the last 8.5.5 in your amendment.
okay, got it.
You're not doing anything to it, but it should be included
Okay,
in there.
got it.
So
I was worried
we're
you were
refer-
saying that the
No, no, no,
legal
no,
That's what I was
notice
worried too.
wrong, and
No,
I
no,
was
no,
like,
no.
Yeah.
No, but it just, and especially because you're referencing in here with these dimensional requirements, but we don't see them unless we
Okay.
go back into the.
Yeah.
got it.
understood.
I will add the dimensional requirements from the section to
Thank you
there.
for walking us off the
Thank you.
cliff on that one.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis, again.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. All right, so do we have anybody online that would like to speak in favor or against this?
No hands raised online.
No hands raised online. May I have
Mr. Chair,
a
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
Second.
closing public hearing, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 7-0-0 on the public hearing. Another motion, please.
Quick question, though.
Okay.
The images that we have for the presentation
Mm-hmm.
that shows what the multi-use looks like, do we
Mm-hmm.
know what the height of those buildings are in those images?
Images.
I would have to, are they current buildings or are they
No, the ones you
rendering?
have in the presentation,
Yes,
I only asked that
illustrations.
because, to Sherry's point, when I was kind of going through this, I had to go re-reference the town center, and, because I was curious what the building height was for mixed use, and it's only 35 feet.
And that's 4 stories or 3 stories? The example.
It's 3.5, so that was, the idea is that we're only gonna be 3.5.
Right.
That's the,
Okay, so then the buildings you show are the 35 foot.
that was my intention, yes.
Okay.
That
I
was
think
my,
Still work on
I
the
think for
presentation.
purposes of
yes.
Town
town
meeting.
meeting, we should verify that.
Yep, okay.
We can work on the presentation. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend favorably on the petition to amend Article 3 districts, Article 4 use regulations, and Article 8 overlay districts of the zoning bylaws with the creation of a, wait a minute, I'm reading the wrong one. Creation of a,
Mixed-use middle housing
no,
overlay.
it's not mixed use, middle housing overlay district.
Oh, yeah, right, yep.
Just, so, with the creation of a middle
Okay.
housing overlay district submitted by the planning board as amended.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 700, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, staff, thank you, Barbara. Okay. Matters of appointment and none, minutes none. I do have another matter. Well, I've gotten some very positive feedback on the revised Leahy parking for our seniors. I've actually had some experience myself, was it yesterday, up at 31 Mall Road, so not at the main hospital, which other folks that I've talked to had some great experiences there with it. And at 31, they were right on, they had right in front of them, the patient was from Burlington. They said, okay, you have a parking pass, show it to me after you get done and we'll have validate. So it was a proactive approach. The folks at the desk know all about it for the Burlington residents, and a resident came in when I was there and she asked about it. The person at the help desk knew exactly about it. She sent her over there. And a very, very smooth process in the transition. It's 60, Barbara. Almost there. Careful what you wish for. So what I would like, when the announcement of that came in from the interim CEO of Leahy, I'd ask if the board is willing, I can sign off, but from the planning board, a letter back to the CEO of Leahy saying what the feedback is in appreciation of that. That's going very smoothly.
Thank you, yes.
So-
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
okay. So I'll put that together. So thank you, board, I
Thank you, Val.
appreciate that, yep. That's the only thing I have. Anybody additional, other matters from from members?
No?
If not, I'll take a motion, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 700. Thank you.